gosh. Okay. So we're gonna go over the last couple weeks of progress. I apologize we missed last week. I had COVID, so that was fun. But anyhow, it's gonna power right through it. So over the last week, we've been kind of powering through custom game options, vehicles, bugs, pathfinding, performance, network optimizations. I mean, the list is numerous, and we're gonna kind of like try and jump through as fast as possible last week's progress, and then get into this week's progress. Now, I do notice that Derek's here. Derek, did you want to talk about some of the stuff you've been doing with the vehicle? I don't know if he's. Let me invite him on to talk. I'll have him start with the vehicle stuff.
There we go.
Okay,
Hello.
Derek. So you have the floor. So why don't you talk about some of the stuff you've been doing with the vehicle, and I'll bring it up on my screen.
Sounds good. For what I've been working on for the vehicle, since this is for over the past 2 weeks here, a big part of it was simply porting a lot of the logic over from Legacy. The majority of the logic for the AI handling for the vehicle was actually in a custom path following behavior component that I created inside of Blueprints. I did it that way inside of Legacy for fast iteration, but once I got it to a good enough position, I then had to it then became cumbersome to keep using Blueprint. So for the rebuild here and getting Chaos Vehicles functional, a large part of getting the Chaos Vehicle system online was simply transcribing the blueprints into not only into C++, but also setting it up so that they function properly in our new systems for rebuild that are cleaner and easier to use. So it was two levels of, in a way, it was two levels of translation. It wasn't quite that complex, but it still took quite a bit of time in order to get that knocked out. In addition to that, once I got that completed and got the basic framework for the driving functional, I then had to start implementing get it to integrate better with the formation systems, which you saw some of the progress for that if you looked at our daily update blog. It's better than that right now than it was for the most recent daily update blog post, because I've since added some additional features to give it a bit of a slack space, so to speak, if that makes sense, where it starts easing off the throttle and then turning on the brake where needed in order to try to maintain a rough parity with the soldiers as it's moving with them. And it will also adapt when they are in fast mode, so to speak, when they're running. They're near the end of the move order, all units will break off from the formation in order to go ahead and go to their final spot. So that can cause a little bit of disparity, but if you give them a longer move order, it goes a little bit cleaner. There's also still bugs to iron out, because the system was extremely large inside of the blueprint for getting the AI behavior in there. So for what Robert is demonstrating here on screen, you can see that it is able to keep speed here. They seem to be following a formation that I was not anticipating, but he is keeping the pace correctly,
individual
which is
placements.
interesting.
It's like a variation of move where sometimes they give up on it.
Yeah. Yes, I wasn't getting quite that on my end, and so I think you may need to
Okay.
get there, Robert. But yeah, so that might be helpful to do there, because I was working on that as one of the primary things that I did earlier today. Right now, actually, when Robert was starting up the podcast, I was working on some new systems for getting them to spawn in correctly when you recruit them from the motor pool, because the Ajax, the Humvee, so to speak, is now available will be available from the motor pool from next batch. And right now we don't have a parachute system in, so it kind of just ingloriously drops. But nonetheless, I have added the handbrake in so that it starts with a handbrake pulled. So if it lands in a weird position, it won't start sliding off and fall into the water because the brakes aren't on when it spawns. And I also am working on the proper location here, so it won't land on top of a building and do weird flips as it lands. I haven't quite fixed that yet. Other things, let's see here. I've done some collision changes to their collision setup, so for the time being, they'll be more forgiving towards other vehicles and each other. Right now, they'll just clip through each other, kind of like you see inside of StarCraft and other RTSs. Over time, we may want to add other stages of realism to that. I'm not sure how far we want to take it, but in order to get this off the ground, I am making it a little bit more lenient and giving it more leeway in terms of collision and obstacle detection, so that it will not be frustrating while we're still ironing out the kinks and getting it up to speed.
Groovy. Yeah, 'cause one of the things that we were going
So,
back and forth was, and we can talk
the
about this openly anyway, is that getting the speed and the synergy with the infantry looking good, because that's typically what most people are going to use them for right off of the rip, is those combined assaults, is getting that situated, and then as we as we basically like get that implemented and get everything working, then it'll be like getting the other base functionalities functioning, where it's like, okay, they can ram again, they can shoot from it again, they can the parachute deploys when they're coming down. Like we're just kind of doing it an itemization of just like this week and last week was getting it. Well, mostly last week was the custom game option, so it was half and half last week. So this is the first week really, and even some of the custom game options were Monday and Tuesday. So we didn't really even have a full week on the vehicles. So going into next week, one of the biggest things is just continuing to refine the vehicles, figuring out the issues where like this fails, and then moving on to like taking little bite-sized chunks out of Legacy in terms of like, okay, they can ram. Oh, they can run over a fence now. So some of the stuff I'll be doing, some of the stuff Derek will be doing, and we'll just kind of be splitting our time next week to essentially just kind of get the Ajax to a point where it's firing on all cylinders and it's working. And then at that point, it's just a matter of like, okay, like now we need to just kind of like bring in other vehicles. So just keep in mind that for the next week or two, it's going to be kind of like, why are they still working on the Ajax? Because I give you an example, it doesn't even have the tow launcher yet, because that's going to be something else that we do sometimes probably later next week. Ideally, is that we get the pathfinding and we get like all the movement and all that stuff situated, and then we get to that point. Hopefully, she doesn't come over here. And I think there were even some issue.
Hopefully she does. Hopefully she doesn't. I put her over there so she doesn't bother you. Sorry.
Yeah,
She doesn't bother
but like
us,
that's the other thing, because we figured there are some issues with like enemy acquisition and targeting towards the car, from what I saw on your channel, Derek, where it's like there's still small little things that we're working out where like they like to go, yeah.
Oh yes, on that point, that was like the thing I tackled after the information movement improvements. I'm still not seeing it on your ends, what I worked on earlier today. So there may be maybe you need to do a revert or an update or something that you're missing. Because on my end, he doesn't move that far forward relative to the
I
soldiers.
might have to do a full
right
rebuild, which I can't do because it'll strain my CPU. Because I can't do that in the middle of a stream. I tried that
Okay, gotcha.
before, and it would like choke out OBS. Yeah.
Oh, it's a disaster. All right, we don't want that to happen. So aside from that, though, one of the things I worked on after that was targeting acquisition for enemies towards the vehicle, because they were having issues at the site grid level. So I added a temporary offset so that they're able to just see them a little bit better for now. We may want to get a more permanent solution, but it works well enough for now so that infected and spitters can both see it and shoot at it properly. I also did some adjustments to get target location for so that spitters, for example, will not shoot at the ground underneath the vehicle, and they won't try to look at the vehicle and then see the ground in front of the vehicle and be like, I don't see a vehicle, because that was part of why they weren't targeting the vehicles correctly, the ground vehicles here correctly. So those are fixed. You can see that the garrisoning is functional. You can, if you tell the driver to hop out, the vehicle will stop responding because there's no one at the seat. You can tell people to hop inside it, and they'll be inside, and they'll be able to shoot. All right, I believe they'll be able to shoot. I haven't fully tested that one yet, but they are able to hop in and hop out just fine. See, there they are. On my end as well, I just recently committed the usage of the. Okay, that's good. I just recently committed a improvement to the selection box there, and you did get that one from the update, so that's good.
Yeah.
I guess that was just a blueprint there. Dimitri committed a fancier effect for us to use for that, but it will require a different system.
Yeah, it's a static mesh later
for the selection box. It looks like it's an effect, so that may be something that comes later.
Interface we have to talk to. So yeah, we'll come back to that next week for polish.
Yeah, but you can see here that it is coming quite a bit better. I also did some basic improvements to the death logic here, so that if the infected do attack at your vehicle, you're not left with a permanent vehicle corpse just sitting there forever rotting without actually doing anything anymore.
Is that when they hit it, they jostle it? Oh, bye-bye. Oh. They panicked. They're dead. Yeah, so that's the other issue. Is like you figure, it's like little issues like that where we're hunting down, because like the infected kind of pushes them over.
The infected can kind of push it a little bit, and right now it doesn't have any logic for determining, hey, it has some basic logic for determining if there's no navigation in front of it, but I haven't fully tested that there as much as I've been testing the other features. So driving off the navigation is not something I've been testing, so I think that's just something happened where it didn't realize
the traces don't account for the
end
of the road, because that would never really happen in a video game, I guess you can say. Because typically you would have like a wall or something.
Yeah, in the actual maps. Yeah, it has a logic check for detecting if water's in front of it, being like, oh, I'm about to go into a lake, and turn and stop itself. But that's not water in front of it. That's just void, and so it doesn't detect any. It detects absolutely nothing, and then it's like, well, that's a problem. Oh,
wait, no, it's salvaged. No. Oh, yeah, it doesn't.
I'm pretty confident of that. Yeah, your endpoint is like right on the edge there, so it's trying to get its
Yeah.
center over that without falling off. I'm not sure
Yeah,
if it's
it's
able to do
probably
that
yeah.
because of
See,
how close that
it just
endpoint is.
barely made it. It just barely made it.
Oh,
Because the biggest thing, if you think about it, right, is that we have those walls, the water walls, where it's like on Treasure Island, where it's like that incline there. So I know that in Legacy, sometimes if you had a move order that was too close to those walls, they would go tossing over it in Legacy, and they'd kill themselves. So I guess they're doing pretty good considering.
nice. Yeah, for the left side of that map, by the way, as a heads up, the left side of the map doesn't have navigation built on it for some reason, so you may be getting
Yeah,
some bugs over
they're
there
off
on
the
that side.
nav.
Yeah, so the off nav stuff is also things I need to improve there. Another thing you can test here that it is better, but it's because I was trying to get some things in a position where if we wanted to do
Do
a
you
simple
want
play
to
test,
put it out in this
we could
form, or do
potentially
you
do
want to
that.
wait at least another day or two?
I didn't know if we wanted to do it or not yet, but I was trying to get it into a situation where if people wanted to mess with it and were okay with
Yeah,
here
because
be
there's definitely
dragons,
going to be
that
issues.
they
I'm
could
not going to bullshit anyone.
without it.
Like, they're going to be
making it,
killing themselves. It's going to be like the wild, wild west.
yeah,
The first week or two.
yeah, it's not going to be great, but it should be enough so that you can see some shenanigans happen. You can test it a bit and see if it's useful in some
For example,
situations
this.
as we're ironing
So it's like
things out.
there's going to be small little things.
Yeah, like
that are,
the
yeah,
the
because
driver's
he's
in a
using the
little hover chair
sparrow
that you
animation,
can't
if
see.
I were to assume. Yeah, and that's something
think
we have
he
to
is.
fix.
I think
We
you're
have
right
to
about
get Michael will figure out what's going on from an animation standpoint, or if the socket's wrong. Because technically, let me pause it.
Oh, and okay, good. Yeah, Dimitri fixed some of the physics issues because previously the antennae on the back of the vehicle, those were, every time you hit play, the antennae would just droop, and it looks like they're not doing that anymore.
Hold on. It looks like
I think it's just a socket issue on the
maybe it's
socket
a
issue on that.
socket issue, but his hands aren't aligning with the steering wheel, which makes me think that he's using. Yeah, that's an animation
that may
issue
be the sparrow
because
animation.
his hands aren't even proper for the steering wheel, so he's probably using the wrong vehicle's profile. If I were to guess, because that could be a socket and then it could be part animation, but we'll have to get with that on Monday and see what's going on there because that's an easy enough debug by just going into the animation blueprint and then just going into debug mode and see what section of the tree's being played or whatever. So I'm not too broken up about that.
Yeah, some of the simple life cycle testing I did earlier today was simply one of the biggest issues it has right now is that it gets really freaked out
Not
around
that time.
CERC buildings.
Got lucky.
Usually.
I know that in Legacy.
At that time, correct. I have, but they tend to have a lot of issues around CERC buildings, so that's a problem. I did also, I believe it was yesterday, add some fixes so that if you're an operator, you can hop inside the vehicle. I haven't customized the operator camera in it yet, so it's not good.
Looks like the
Oh,
interaction.
what's going on there? I never got that interaction. I was always able to enter
Let
the
me see
vehicle
if
as
it's an
operator.
issue with doing it live, or it's like after it's been like moving around for a while, it's something wrong with this physics state.
Maybe because I tested
Well, I
that.
saw your gifts.
I made sure I got it working before I moved on.
Oh, yeah, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
It looks like it's not detecting it.
Able up. Wonder if that's like some sort of collision change that happened recently. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, of course.
After this,
Let me check.
after I hang up here.
No, it has the proper collision. Weird. Well, we'll look into it. But I didn't think that was going to work because I know that the operator is going to be a little bit buggy with his interaction with the Ajax initially.
Yeah.
But the goal is like getting into a point where at the very least they can ride around those cars, like any car, Bradley, tank, whatever, as long as there's capacity available. And the idea is that you can get in there and you can shoot from it. So like, I'll pull up his picture. And then we'll have to look into that so you guys can at least see what we're talking about. Is that you figure, like, we're going to have to look at some other games and see what they do for just being able to do that. So, like, this, where, like, you can just sit in there. That's an operator just sitting in the car. Go away, Chrome. I'm going to have to... God damn it.
Windows is making sure that
Yeah,
you're
I'm going to
getting all the help you
just
need.
start nuking those. But basically, like, you can see there's an example of it. So it's that kind of stuff where you have that kind of interoperability between all the systems. So it's like, hey, I can ride around, an RTS player can ferry me around. And that way, ideally, by the end of next week, the goal, by next podcast, is to have it to a point where you guys are zipping around. You guys are, you guys have the ramming. You guys have the def logic working. Everyone knows how to target them properly. Any major pathfinding issues are resolved. They're still being hunted down. There's small little minor things here and there. We'll have to see how the week goes. But I'm primarily going to be working on just the destruction of the landscapeable. So, like, give you an example. And I mentioned this to the Patreons yesterday when I was talking to them, is that you guys are kind of done fucked because once we add in the ground vehicles, the next thing we're adding in is the ability for the fences and all those landscapables that you normally clear, that you choose not to clear sometimes. That means that the Juggernaut and the infected can damage them in some cases, and your grenades can damage them. So throwing a grenade at that little like stone arc in the soccer field on Half Moon Bay is going to start to chip away at that health. So that's the next logical step for all of this, is making it to where, like, next week I'm working on ramming, I'm working on destruction, and I'm working on basically just kind of like them driving through a wooden fence and the wooden fence coming apart. Them driving through a mailbox and that comes apart. Because then that way it opens up the movement and the traversal. So, like, I'll open up, we'll go to a map I have a little more memorized. So let's go to Half Moon, and we're gonna go to Pandemic, and I'll show you guys some examples of like what we're gonna be doing next week, because you figure this is a really big thing for getting it to where the vehicles feel kind of like weighty, and then based off of their weight classes, like we'll be going in and we'll be probably bugging Dimitri and Michael a little bit here and there, but figuring out like, okay, like what class of object can the Striker only go through, or the Bradley or the Abrams versus like a Jeep, because like we'll have like tiers is the idea. And I'm curious about this for when we get to the point of like discussing it in the Q&A part after this, is I think that the best case scenario is having it to where like maybe a single click is they try and stay on the roads and they try and like not destroy stuff. And then maybe a double click is when they're more inclined to like go through objects. I know that's what some games do here and there. Because I know some people on Legacy were talking to me about how sometimes they just don't want a vehicle to take out an entire neighborhood of cars, and they want them to just drive like a nice GTA person, where it's like, follow your roads, you know, don't crash through stuff. Because like an example would be is this perimeter here, where if you have an Abrams or like a Striker, they're going to go right through these walls. If you give them a move order from like right here to like right there, they're not going to go around and be all nice and civil and follow the roads. They're going to go right through that wall, destroy it, and then we're going to experiment with some car pushing or whatever, and see if we can get that working. Otherwise, we'll just destroy them in place. But that's something that I wanted to do this time around, was just get the destruction right and get it good from a fundamental level with the ramming and all the other stuff we're working on next week. So, like these streetlights, trees, because we'll put it into the Juggernaut to move trees again, because they would basically ram them and move them around like Jurassic Park. So you would see them like moving in the distance, like in the Fog of War. You could hear the tree moving, and then you could see it basically moving in the Fog of War regardless. So that you knew, even if you didn't see them, oh, there's Juggernauts in that collection of trees. And it was a really cool small feature in Legacy that I fucking love, because it's Jurassic Park. Who doesn't love Jurassic Park? So you figure it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, that's the thing to keep in mind, is that, so that part I'm kind of curious on. When we get the Q&A, feel free to kind of like drop in your guys' like feedback. What do you guys think about that? What do you guys think about the aspect of like, you click once, they drive like a good person. You double click, i.e. it's a run, it's a move order of importance. Then they'll basically just go right through the wall. They'll just go through whatever they have to get through to get there as quickly as possible. So that's something. So there's something there, and then you figure you guys can kind of see that like once the vehicles are in, they're gonna kind of be ramming and hitting quite a bunch of stuff based off of like if they have to, they will. In some cases, like these walls will be leveled, because these walls are landscapeable, I believe. Yeah, those walls are landscapeable, so Juggernauts will be able to destroy these walls in Horde mode and in Pandemic once we get that in sometime next week. Same thing with those walls. Same thing with the... What else is there? Oh, those perimeter walls over here. The ones that you guys love to hide in. That we do all the time on the streams. This would be another example where they'd be able to just Kool-Aid Man through these walls and then associate some kind of health to them, ideally. And then that way, blow up guys, grenades. they all decay and tick at the object. So now you're gonna have breaches. You're gonna have to actually plug holes. Sorry, again, I had COVID all this last week, so it's been miserable. So if I cough or sound like I'm out of breath, I'm doing the best I can. So just be patient with me. But yeah, that's the idea. It's like, oh, another example is these fences. I know a common strategy is it comes to the soccer arena and use this entrance and that entrance to corral them. That won't work anymore. So just keep in mind that like those are things that we're going to be going into next week to kind of like get the vehicles to a point where they're ready to go. Because you can see the purple is what I'm talking about. Right now they've been ignoring the purple, but once the vehicles are in, and once the juggernauts are allowed to walk through purples, they're just going to Kool-Aid man through the wall. They're just going to damage it in some shape, manner, or form and go right through it. So, and we'll have a system where the idea is that they're sleeping, because you can't keep all of these objects alive at all times. You blow up someone's processor, their network, blah 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 blah. So the idea is until there's an event nearby that wakes it up, then we figure out what's relevant, and then we ragdoll them, we send them off, we destroy them. Whatever's applicable based off of each individual like variation, and then boom, Bob's your uncle. They're now destroyed and they've moved, and now there's a breach of your perimeter. So that'll be an interesting little thing that we're gonna push for going into next week with the ramming. And then what else is there, Derek? Did you want to kind of cover or maybe throw out there into either for the vehicles?
Related to that, related to the double-click move order, there are several folks in chat are already saying that they love the idea of that. We could probably tie that to the run mode that we've already added that soldiers have, where if vehicles are in run mode, then they're like, okay, boss, I'm going to just take a straight line where I can.
So run mode, favors roads more than anything, and then when they're not in run mode or like running in default? Because like...
Other way around, because when it comes to regular characters, for example, you turn on run mode.
Yeah. Sorry, that's my fault. I'm stupid. Yeah,
the same way for vehicles. No, you're not. No, you're not. It's just how things go. When you would turn on run mode, so the vehicles, it would do the same thing, like a double click, so that it would say, hey, for this vehicle here, use your obstacle ignoring navigation query, so that if you want to go through walls, go ahead. Whereas if you use the regular click order, it will prefer the first one, and if it can't reach the target through the first one, then it'll query again with the wall breaker one, so that if a unit somehow gets trapped by blockables, if you wall someone in or something like that, but there is still a wall that he can break through, and you don't give him a run order, he'll break through anyway, because otherwise he can't get there. So that's how it rolls out in my head anyway.
Makes sense. So like
any other ideas here? Do you think the ramming and stuff? You were the one who implemented the ramming, the proper ramming in Legacy, because prior to that we had an overlap system.
No, I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'm going to do that myself. Don't worry about that, because I already know how I did that in Legacy.
Yes, thank you.
Where it was an interaction with the FAT, and it basically just did an impulse event where it was like, oh, I hate you, and then it would apply. It would basically kill them. The biggest thing we'll have to figure out is that if you ram a junkie, I'm going to have to do some tests where it's like you ramming a junkie is just going to piss him off. Like you're going to do maybe like 1%, 5% damage, and then he's going to slap you around.
You're going to bruise his knee, and he's going
that's
to
the biggest thing. Because like the biggest thing is like give an example of like the blow up guy.
Yeah.
You don't want to ram those guys. Your vehicle will probably be dead on the third ram. But you figure like here's another example where like these fences are lined, those wood fences are lined, and that would feed into like you make a new door. You want to, or throw a grenade, blow this hole, blow that, go through. Because then this kind of is an evolution on like the doctrines. Because we're setting the precedent, or we're setting the foundation for everything that comes, it's going to come down later down the pipe. Where it's going to be like, okay, we get the vehicles in, we got the ramming, all the weapons are in, it's nice, but we also had to get in these elements. Now those elements are in, then the airstrikes are in. So now it's like, okay, we don't want to go down that street because they keep coming down that street over here. Let's just blow a hole here, and flank that pod. You don't have to ask an RTS. Because I know that sometimes when we play RTS, when we're playing with the operators will request, like, it's funny, it's like almost requesting an engineer, is that we'll mark it, and we'll be like, hey, we need an RTS player to clear this wall so we can go through and flank, basically. Well, technically, you do that yourself. Go.
Yeah, and related to that, then, something we may also want to do there is rebalance the landscaping costs once we make these things destructible, so that you might be tempted to just blow them up with the ordnance. Just,
Well, there's
just
different ways
off
of
the top
doing
of
it
my
because
head.
you could make it to where there's a damage system to them, which we're gonna have to do regardless. But we could also go the avenue of having it to where,
Mhm.
because every object in the engine already supports take damage. It's just a fundamental thing of the Unreal Engine where like can be damage, apply impulse on damages on every object in the entire world. So if we add our modular health component to the landscapables, they're already dormant until awoken anyway. And then we simply just say, hey, when you're awakened, you take some damage. Basically, figure out how much health you have left, and if you don't have enough health left, then do the gib, do the destruction effect if it exists, and update the navigation, and then flag yourself to the save system to basically say next time you save and load, this is the state I was in, this is the health, blah 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 blah, and that way we can basically inject our structure health component to these landscapables, even if it's a tree, and then technically they could have health associated with them, or even have damage resistances. Or you can have it to where like certain objects will hit the fence less or more. The only problem that would come into it is that infected AI would require some extra quirks to target it independently, like standard infected and blow up guys. That's probably would be because we'd have to register them to a neutral faction or something. So that would be the caveat. We'd also have to add a unit component if we want the AI to affect it. But if we're talking about just like they're in my way, I'm going to destroy you kind of deal, and then we just go down that line of thinking, and then later down the line, we could maybe see if it feels right for have blow up guys and standard infected tear down fence segments to get to you, like in 7 Days to Die. That's something we can kind of set the foundation for now, and then start to make those movements over time if that's what people want. And it feels right based off of, it's still a simulation RTS game, so we can still experiment here and there. Nobody says we're done tomorrow. So, yeah. So it's one of those things where like that, or maybe even just looking into like when we can do the operator polish towards the mid to end of December, we're probably going to want to figure out some kind of way of having the operators be able to use the clear tool, like give them something to clear it. Maybe I don't know. We'll have to look into that because I know I have Krieg. Krieg's computer blew up last week. Arc Raiders. God, I'm good. So maybe a little bit of Cepheus Protocol dev too. So you figure when he's back in the next couple of days, I'm gonna have him be going in and changing all of the prices for all the landscapables, because I put in starter values. So like if I search for here and I go to price, or was it? It's a cost. Yeah, $10. $10. What the fuck? That's cheap. So everything's $10 in the entire project to clear. So he's been kind of experimenting with that on his test map. And I was like, hey, Krieg, do you just want to go through, and since you play the game religiously, just building all day, clearing out landscapes. Like when we play RTS, his one job is to build the mecha base while everyone else is out doing their runs, their milk runs. So like making sure we don't die. And he's playing Mozart in the background. So you figure that's one of the biggest things. Like I'm gonna have him go through and just kind of adjust some of the landscapeable prices, so then that way it's not just, hey, I'll just clear it. Hey, I just clear it. It's like there's an actual thought process going into clearing neighborhoods and clearing cars and whatever. Because right now it's just superficial. It's just whatever. Just throw my money at it. So that's something that I'll have him look at going into next week. So you will notice some price changes going into like the trees and the walls and the cars and all the other fun stuff. And that way it'll be actually like be a little more thought process involved. So you figure that's something, again, we'll look into like having it where the operators can like clear it somehow. Maybe have a clear time, because I know that you figure like everything is so fast in our game right now, it doesn't ever slow down. In terms of like destroying a building is instant, doing this is instant, and it's like we might want to add like a deconstruct time, because I know a lot of people like to deconstruct entire bases before Chelsea comes. I know Age of Empires tackled that by having it to where it would 4 seconds, and if it didn't finish all the way, you didn't get all the money, and you still only got like 60 or 50% of your money that you invested into that object. Because I've seen people deconstruct their entire base before Chelsea even came, because they knew their advanced team died, and they had nothing. They were like, let's just salvage some money, go on a little board, and go somewhere. So I put in the 60% like money you get back only, but now I'm like, well, we're gonna have to like play with that. Yeah, so anyway, anything else you want to add for Derek? Because I don't want to keep you up. I know you go to sleep soon.
Well, a good thing here. Digital Fear mentioned, wonder if operators with the engineering
Yeah.
perk, and I'm guessing engineers by extension, could use the blowtorch to dismantle wood fences,
Oh
chain link
yeah, that's
fences,
a good
and so
idea.
forth.
Where it's like left click to build, right click to deconstruct, or something like that. Where it's like you can hold it and then it would just have a progress bar that goes down,
Yeah.
and it just takes the money out at the end.
Probably seems like a way to use landscaping mode while you're an operator. If you have the engineering tool, you can just landscape yourself through the landscapable
Yeah,
object
it's
if you wanted to.
we defined.
And potentially
We
add that to
wrote that in the
engineers
player
over time, too.
controller for a reason. So technically, we could change the interaction to be from a circle to a line in the case of a pawn check when you start up the tool, and then that way all it would do is just do like, hey, look, like imagine I'm playing as an operator and I'm selecting this wall. It would just do that. So you'd be able to select individual wall segments or cars just by physically looking at them, and then just pressing left click or right click, whatever key setup we put in. You pay the price because technically it works for RTS, it works for operator. That's the way it was programmed when it comes to like the synergy of where it is in the it's an actor component on the player controller with the widget and all the other stuff. So there might be some minor changes you have to make to cast, but it should just work seamlessly in terms of the cost, and everyone has a ability to spend money in the game. So that's something we'll have to look into next month. It's something to kind of like iron it out because I'm keen on spending the rest of this month and the middle of next month, next 1 or 2 weeks, get the Ajax, get it beautiful, get it sexy, and then start bringing in all the other vehicles. And the moment that's done, then it's the doctrines. And the moment that's done, it's operator polish. Then we're at the Christmas sale. So by the end, so the goal is by the Christmas sale, we're trying to get a good amount of content back in the game. So the only things that are missing are civilian evacuation and dynamic civilian groups, because those are no way we'll finish those in time by the end of the year. Well, to be honest, like we need to make sure. Excuse me, I'm gonna cough again. We need to make sure that what we are putting in is better than what it was before, is final, as clear final as possible, human speaking, of course, and essentially is a better experience. So you figure the game as it stands right now from where we started, we're almost a year in at this point for the rebuild. It was January 4th that we started over. So regardless, we're trying to get to a point by January where worst case in civilian evacuation, dynamic civilian groups, that's not the end of the world. We could spend another month or two polishing up those systems. There'll be enough in the core offering because, like, you figure we got Calypso in this week. There was a little bit of a growing pain, so we did get that in as well. So, like, I'll show that real quickly because you guys can play this right now. I released it like a day or two ago, and then I had some more bug fixes that came in this morning. But just keep in mind that, like, I'm going to play around with the vehicle a little bit more and see if there's anything else that's really weird with it. But I intentionally held it for, like, since last night because I wanted to see what else was going to come in today, see how it felt, and then make the decision at that point. Do we want to put it out tonight? Do we want to wait till Monday? So if I do put it out tonight, here be dragons. Like, you're going to run into issues. They're going to kill themselves. They're going to drive off of hills. That's going to be a thing for at least another week as we just kind of, we've ported everything over from Legacy. We've made improvements where we can make improvements right off the rip. And now that we've got the foundation over, we're going to be polishing it. We're going to be tweaking it. So I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's better that you guys jump in and play it now so you can tell us the situations where they fail, where they do well. And then that way we can get an abundance of feedback and data and then make informed decisions based off of, like, people are consistently saying they do this or they do that. Like, I'll give you an example. I was playing with Riff the other day on the Ajax, and we were driving it up this hill. And when it would basically, I'll just throw some Ajaxes on the map. So I'll just show you guys real fast. So I'm going to drop those in and play, and I'll show you guys. They do pretty good, but there's still some oddities with their interactions with the infected where they try and go right inside the vehicle and target that little white spot that you see. So I don't think you fixed that right yet, right, Derek? For the find closest point not working on the skeletal mesh?
Regarding the skeletal
The
mesh, which
Ajax,
skeletal
how,
mesh,
like, sometimes when they target they target the route instead of targeting the find closest point.
Yes, Correct. I did add some stuff for get target location, but the melee logic still needs tweaks there because the melee logic itself is not good enough yet to deal with that. And it uses a different system.
Yeah,
It
I've
looks
been
like they
tweaking
found
the
path.
pathfinding religiously. This is the other thing I wanted to show because like you figure in Legacy, they theoretically would have did the stupid, and they would have basically had not known how to get there. They would have given up on that rock face right over here. Now the only issue that I'm running into with making the pathfinding that expensive, failure.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, got too close to the wall there, and right now when they touch a wall, they tend to seem to get sucked
yeah,
into
no, because
it,
like
if
this
that
is a
makes
fatal
sense.
failure. There we go, there we go, there we go. Wait,
And
recover.
yeah, and yeah, there's that thing you mentioned earlier where they have issues with getting traction
It's the friction
on
of the
inclines.
physical material. We would have to make it. There's different ways we could do that. We could make it to where, yeah. So
I'm also seeing here. I'm also seeing here that they are when they're
see
moving
the
point to
jitter.
point here because I haven't fully tested. I've been testing it very much inside of test maps here. I am seeing the jitter, which I don't believe I've noticed that much inside the test map because I've been mostly doing it in a test map to just get the basic features in, move on, get basic features in, move on,
Yeah.
fix this, fix that, and so forth. So in the actual full map here, I'm seeing that as they're approaching these points here, which is not something I was noticing in the test map,
Oh yes.
they tend to be slowing down a lot
And then like
more
you see how
than
they
need to
don't
be.
ramp up enough.
Whereas they should be keeping.
See, the problem is that you figure we would
Yeah.
have to probably. I don't know what the technical term is, so correct me if I'm wrong. But we would have to look at like the overall load balancing of the vehicle of like funny. I was playing Space Engineers, and this is why I think about it. Is like when you're playing Space Engineers and you have like that diagram at the bottom right where it shows you like your overall like the way your ship is angled. Like we'd have to look at like the load, like I don't know the technical term of it, but it's like a gravity thing where it's like if your car is leaning like that at that angle, you can make the assumption we're going up a hill, and if we're going up a hill, then we'd have to have some kind of system that like babysits the throttle, that basically is like, hey, give it more gas. So
That's the thing though. Right now, you can see the debug logic, the debug text above him right now. That's indicating right. As far as I'm aware,
it's hard to
I
read with
can't
the
quite read
yeah,
it from
yeah,
my current position, but I'm pretty certain. But I'm pretty certain that even when he's moving slowly up the hill, that he's saying full throttle, throttle 1.0.
So he's already
As in
maxing out
100%.
the engine when he goes
So
up that hill.
yeah, he's already when going up those hills, he was already pedal to the metal here. Here, where he's going from these points here, he's slowing down more than he should be. I don't even recall him doing things like that inside of a test map. So I'm
It's
guessing
the
that's
real world.
some
No, like
other issue
that's
maybe
what I always say.
happening
Is like you figure, and we always go back and forth on this. It's like you figure, I'm just to kind of clarify for you guys on the outside looking in, is that when you're a game dev, you try and get as much done as possible in these nice, clean environments where they're like vertical slices. To try and be as time efficient as possible, because loading into these maps takes a lot of time to stage and set up. So the problem is like what we're experiencing now, and this is kind of a failure from previously of why a lot of issues weren't resolved, is that you figure now we're gonna need to like really do better in terms of like me and everyone else involved of making it to where it's like, hey, like we need to make sure we're like just doing stupid tests like this where we just drop a vehicle into the map for 20 minutes and we just record it and then we go back and we figure out what caused it. Because the staging can take a while because my computer's really good, but not everyone's computer can load this map as quickly as I did and get in there. So it's one of those things where it's like that's something we're gonna have to keep refining and tweaking, because there's a good example right there where it's like, okay, cool, like now we know, because like this right here's a good example. This collision of this rock could just be shit. It could be nothing wrong with Derek's algorithm of how he's doing the pathfinding, how he's doing the actual calculation. It could just be simply that rock was placed in from Megascans. It's from an asset pack, probably one of the rocks they use in the Mandalorian for all we know, because they use Megascans. And you figure, let's see, if we show collision, is it even accurate? So they have these prims.
You can see.
Yeah, it's not accurate.
You
It's
can see where
bleeding
the
out.
squares are emanating.
That's weird.
You can see that the car is detecting it though, but not really It's not caring enough, if that makes sense, or it's not able to turn properly because of the incline. Because the box is emanating out from the car there. You could see, well, earlier it was teal and then turned to green, and it was turned to green where it was hitting the rock. Right now it's getting.
Ooh, no, that
jostled
will
inside there.
probably be a pathfinding issue. It's actually no. Let's look at the combination of both. So the issue is that this rock face comes out more than the navigation scene here allows. So that makes it to where there's a little chamfer here where this part of the car rams into the rock. In this case, the collision is too accurate, and it has to be scaled down, or the trace of the vehicle has to account for that. Because when I showed collision, there were random seams that were bleeding out, and that can almost be like like an anchor. Because if I just manually tell him to go around, he's fine. But that's a symptom of basically just the level of density that we have in our game, where it makes it not as easy as other RTS games to solve because we're fucking insane. Because we like to make levels like super dense and super like like the real world. But that's why nobody does this in RTS games. You play Halo Wars, you play like even Total War, they're empty battlefields. There's nothing on them. They're boxes randomly with like, so it's very hard for their pathfinding to break when it does break. I mean, think about Kenshi. So it's a unique problem that we're gonna have to solve when it comes to like very, very, very dissecting of like collision assets as people report this and as we run into them to look at these collision objects and figure out like, okay, what's working and what's not in some of these regards. Because like if I give him a driving run over here, you can see if I pause, you can, if you're the host rather, you can see the points that he's calculating, and then you can see the post-process adjustments we made based off of the unique curvature of the vehicle to try and hyper focus, like go here and then go there. It's like, think about like basically all it's trying to do is do its best job to stay on those points. So it's like it's not really even teaching them to drive. It's just teaching them how to hit those points like when you're playing a racing game, essentially. But it's dynamic instead of being static like in Forza or something. So there's in a good nutshell, and then I think they just failed again. Yeah, so that car might have weird collision. It probably has weird collision, or it somehow jostled itself into it. This is a good example of things that are going to pop up if we release it today. Like now I'd have to like landscape the car. That's weird. I can't move it. Can I?
You might be able to just landscape the car for now. Instead, the truck.
Oh, that cancels the move order.
Also, yeah, while you're fixing that, John Carmine says, is a Humvee variant going to appear or only an open roof variant? Both the closed roof and the open roof are going to appear. The closed roof is going to appear for some versions here that have weaponry equipped like it did in Legacy.
So this is purely just the transport version. That is the lowest tier. That is like everyone gets by default. It's the cheapest. It's like your medium tier scout car, because the Peregrine, the scout car, is going to be returning with this push. And I'll show you guys that asset because it was taken out in 2022, 2023 for the Ajax, and it was like, nah, we still have a purpose for that. Let's give it as like a very light, super fast version of the scout car, and put that back in there again because it was something we were experimenting with back in the day. But you figure, let me see if it's going to make its way, and then we'll move on to the next line item for this week for the custom game options and everything else. Is there anything else you want to cover for the vehicles?
You can see that. Well, you can see here from the footage as well, and this is something that I was experiencing in the test map, is that when it comes to the really sharp turns here,
The turning, yeah.
That's one of the major issues that it has. It turns a little too tight, bumps into the wall, gets sucked
That's
into
what I
it,
meant by the ping. When people were saying
so
like arcadey, I'm talking about these turning ratios. Now, technically, you could solve a majority of these turning issues by making them favor the road nav, because then it wouldn't be it would be a lot less forgiving. Because then it's okay if they drag a little bit, but in situations where you have, but in situations where you have, say, traffic jams, like different things in the map that are causing like blockades and whatnot, AI setting up like civilian encampments, you're going to run into the same issue, and that issue is that you figure they're not going to be able to turn fast enough on a dime when they're up to speed. I guess you could make the argument that like even a real person would have that issue in some cases, but like you see it, like let's see if he's gonna die. Oh yeah, he's so. Why'd you stop? Oh yeah, he's screwed.
You can see there that as well. That's something I did earlier today. Was just doing the basic life cycle testing there. So you can see that the Humvee there actually
Yeah.
did the explosion effect on death rather than not doing any explosion effect, and it properly registers with the corpse system. So that otherwise, because if it didn't do that, otherwise the actor would just sit there the entire time for the rest of the match, potentially
Yeah,
causing
yeah.
memory leak issues.
No, that
if it
makes
didn't clean
sense because
itself up.
they're having issue with that car turning as well. Yeah, the biggest issue right now is the turning. It's the turning, and then it's the edge detection, and that comes down to like super high vetting every object in the entire project, for especially the rocks, and then having them favor the road nav. Just going in the direction of like having the road nav be like 2 times cheaper than the green nav would probably fix a vast majority of these issues. But we're still going to run into situations where they're going to like slam into a car, slam into an edge until we make their turning not as like realistic for an AI. Where we basically make it to where they just turn a little bit faster, potentially. Like when it comes to the operators driving, it'll be completely different. There'll be like actual manual hand like tuning and adjustment that goes into them. I'm talking about from an AI standpoint, just to make it to where they work and they're refined and they're doing their job and it's not just an overcomplication. Is that like you figure they just might turn or be a little bit more like laser focused in how they handle the car? They'll be a little more streamlined. But when it comes to like getting to the point of operator polish and we make it to where the operators can control the vehicles, there'll be a different handling profile. Like Dimitri or somebody else will go and, oh, yeah.
See that little. And someone noticed that weird little driving move here where
That
he's
was
trying
weird.
to. Ooh, that was interesting. Where he's basically playing, going back and forth between the road and the lamp posts as if it was
Yeah.
a relay race or something. You see skiers do. I don't. The word escapes me right now. That's another thing the road
I'm
nav
gonna
would
go
help with
change
there
that and
because
cook another
part of the
build. I think
pathfinding
I'm gonna
system that
go.
Unreal.
That's a very simple fix to do. We just add it to the nav area class of whatever they're doing in their AI controller.
You'll need to make sure to set up the AI controller there because I don't think I've given the Ajax there his own unique AI class yet.
That's
And so
easy.
we may need to make a base Chaos Vehicle AI class, give it the appropriate thing,
That's easy.
give it that whole rigmarole. But part of the reason that you see that's some of the navigation paths going
Whoa.
off road and back on road as well, is that Unreal's default pathfinding logic is geared around the idea that something can move just in straight lines, no
Yeah.
problem. And there's no acceleration, no stop, no start, because that's generally how a soldier would move. Because a soldier has a very quick turning radius, because you can just turn on a dime if you have feet. This does not have feet, and it has a lot of mass and a lot of acceleration and a lot of velocity. So because of that, what we do is, while we still use Unreal's pathfinding logic, we do a post process on the pathfinding, right now at least, in order to adjust where the points are generated and basically try to smooth turns, get rid of the unneeded points, and try to make it drive a little bit straighter. But there's still artifacts left over from Unreal's pathfinding generation where it's like, why would we turn past that lamp, go around the lamp, and then get back on the road? And changing the road nav here will also help in simplifying it so that it behaves much more like a car would in terms of the path that the engine would generate for it to take.
The biggest thing is that it looks like this map has not been ported over to the road nav yet, so we'd have to get with Efren on that because it looks like not Calypso. I know Half Moon Bay and Treasure Island both have the road nav in them, so it would just be something that we're going to have to test first on those two maps, and then because right now Efren's going through a backlog of working on Treasure Island bug fixes and collision fixes because as they're coming in from everyone playing the game, I'm tagging them to him and he's kind of going through. So this map is going to be a little bit rough for the next week or so as he's processing through your guys' bug reports on Discord and on Steam. And then ideally, this map will get a little bit more focus going into like mid next week or whatnot. And we'll be able to get it to, oh, he ran out of gas. That's another thing is we're going to have to change the gas consumption rates because they've been tuned for the helicopters. But
yeah, I give it the helicopter fuel consumption rate to start with because previously it was much faster than that. I think like twice as fast as that.
Even
But
they're
still,
idle. This car's been idle and he burnt like
vehicle
3/4 of his
basis rather than just
gas.
generic. Yes, the idle rate right now is way too high. I think it needs to be like a fifth of what
I've
it
got
is
to
right
bring that
now,
down.
somehow.
And part of that's going to be potentially, oh, that's weird. We're going to have to figure that out. Is that sometimes when you zoom in really aggressively, it will like lock you into that position. Because it's the dynamic code it thinks you're close to the ground, so it's trying to slow down your movement speed. So we'll have to figure that out. But I think this is a good foundation to build from and to solve the issues from Legacy and to basically just kind of keep going forward to like resolve it and kind of get it all situated. Um, let's see. Is there anything else you want to hit up there before we move on to the next topic? Because I got to cover Dimitri stuff.
Well, we got 2 more questions here. Digital Fear asks, any benefit of having the ability to tab follow, as in like camera following, the vehicle, and RTS players mainly drive it using WASDA in certain situations? As in, like, he's basically asking the ability to not just camera follow the vehicles, but also have the RTS players be
It's
able to
possible, just
manually pilot
nobody's
via
asked for it.
WASD. Right, and then a similar one. Question on the operator driving: what camera perspective will it be? I'm guessing first person.
Third person.
It'll probably be
GTA.
I'm guessing that
Well, the idea would be
Yeah.
like, okay, so when we did the prototype 2 or 3 years ago for the operator, we basically mirrored Battlefield, but the idea is like, here, let me mock this up. Oh, something's spawning in. Basically, we had a camera that was like this, that was a third person follow, and then we had a hood camera, and the idea is that would simulate where the person's eyes were, and then you could look left and right. So it was like Battlefield Arma was the idea. And then we had a turret one. The turret one fell back on the third person one, where you can look around. Actually, no, sorry. It wasn't a third person. It was, correct me if I'm wrong, Derek, when we set that up. But basically, it was a first person view from the turret, wasn't it? It was like somewhere right around here when we set up the turret when we were prototyping that for the operator a couple of years ago.
It was a while, it was long enough ago that I'm not quite remembering, but my memory is telling me that it was somewhat third person where you were looking kind of down the barrel of the gun.
Yeah. So
remembering.
basically, it's
Totally
one of those
sorry.
things where like we'll be able to talk about more next month when it comes to that. But the biggest thing for us is just getting it to a point of like ironing out what you see, and then we'll start chipping away at those kind of things. Because we're gonna get everything working on the Ajax, and then everything else will just basically like follow that precedent. And everyone's out of gas, so now I'm fucked. We're gonna have to make a console command for giving our units gas as devs. I just realized that we need a console command for infinite gas, and we need a console command for just adding gas for debugging reasons. So I'll put that down in my notes for next week. Gas, add gas, and infinite gas. That'd be perfect for just debugging the vehicles on our test maps, or just when we're trying to break stuff and we want to drive around for an hour. Okay, so I think that pretty much sums it up for the vehicles. I mean, they're getting there. We've had some great progress in the last week, and now it's just a matter of just figuring out. sorry again. Figuring out where the collisions are wrong, like these rocks. Figuring out where the pathfinding is wrong. Figuring out when the turning is wrong. Those are the 3 biggest obstacles for just getting the vehicles to a point where they're better than what they were in Legacy. And then. Here, okay, then we'll break into the next thing. Is that Dimitri had a treat for the main menu. So this came out about 2 days ago. So you guys are welcome to kind of give this a gander and try it out. So once I load in, I will show you. So his goal is still to kind of get this map to a place of completion, ideally by the end of the year. It's just been a little bit slow, whatnot here and there, but it's getting there slowly but surely. So if I go to operator customization and I teleport over, you can see that you have a weapon range. And over the course of the next month or so, I will add in like a scoring system. So that way you can sit here and shoot the heads, and it will basically be able to, make a sound, show a number of how much damage you're doing. You can switch to your secondary and fire that. There's targets over there. Now, this is something that wasn't really kind of discussed and mentioned, is that if you shoot, there is an actual drop-off for the grenade launcher now, because people were using this as the meta to basically be able to like snipe gas towers way outside of the fog of war. So we did add a drop to the MGL for just the operator version, just to make it to where you actually have to lead the shot. So that's something that basically we'll just kind of keep refining and tweaking as we go. But there's a cool little addition here. You can walk over here and explore it. It doesn't like get mad at you. It's just kind of weird. And as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, and I've been talking to people on the Discord, the operators will get another couple weeks of polish going into the end of December to basically iron out some of their recoil patterns, some of their shooting profiles, their progression in terms of their XP, the weapons that they have, and the attachments that they get. Because right now, as it stands, about 20 weapons that are missing. That basically we're just kind of trying to get some more infected variations and some other other RTS elements situated. And then we're going to fill in this roster and get this UI redone. Because this UI is fucking ugly as shit. So it's serviceable, it works, it's great, but this whole UI needs to be reskinned and redone. And we'll be adding in some more secondaries in about... So you might go add it in the AK. Yeah, so we're right now, we're missing about... That's 5? Missing 19. Yeah, so we're missing 19 weapons. Because there's 2 to 3 weapons of every category of SMG, assault rifle, sniper rifle, and X, Y, and Z. So we'll get that in there. But, we'll start getting that moving around mid-December to end December once Michael finishes the backlog of the infected. Which here, I'll go and I'll pull those up real fast so you guys can see what Michael's been working on alongside balance work. So if I go and I pull up these guys, oh, there's not that guy. So Michael's been kind of going through and essentially just kind of playing with getting some more infected variations into the game, or to replace some of the older ones. Some of them do look a little bit too white and over stylized, like this one and that one and that one. So we're gonna have to basically meet to kind of tone down their paleness so they look like generic zombies to a certain degree, and not more like the Pingu virus. So those are things that we're gonna tweak and just kind of refine. You'll also notice that they're a little bit low res, in terms of their textures. Like this one's a little bit blurry. That one's decent. That one's okay. It really just, we need to kind of go in and just refine their paleness and just keep tweaking them here and there. And then keep adding more infected variations, because the point is of getting to a level where we have at least 10 to 20 of these guys. So there's a lot more variation over Legacy. In Legacy, we had 6 variants, 3 males and 3 females. And one of the biggest things is I've been playing a couple other games to get some inspiration and ideas to flesh out the core gameplay loop. To add some more nuance to just the small little minute-to-minute gameplay, like 7 Days to Die and co. And one of the things that I've been talking to Michael about looking into doing is having it to where there's police and SWAT, and there's different like a construction worker or a firefighter that are infected that have different, I guess you could say, mutilators or spins on traditional standard infected, where they take a little more bullets. They're a little bit more damage resistant in the chest, a little more damage resistant in the head, so you have to shoot them in the legs. You have to shoot them in the arms. So that's something else that's Michael's major line item going into the end of this month and next month with the balance and the weapons and everything else, is seeing as he kind of cements and gets these infected situated, is introducing a little bit more variety in the minute-to-minute gameplay of that's a stalker, that's a infected police variant, that's an infected SWAT variant. I can't shoot him in the head, I can't shoot him in the chest. They're gonna eat up bullets. So little stuff like that, where it's they'll kind of expand out the gameplay loop and give a little bit more nuance here and there. So, give you an example of Left 4 Dead, because Left 4 Dead did this 10 years ago. So it's not as normal in RTS games, because I know They Are Billions does 3 archetypes of standard infected. I think it's 3 or 4. But we're going to see if we can kind of experiment with kind of fleshing that out a little bit more, and just kind of they won't have special abilities per se, but they'll have small little nuances of that one's a little bit faster, that one's a little bit more bullet resilient in some areas of his body. That based off of their physical characteristics of how they're designed, and what makes sense by looking at them visually. So I think that would add a lot more nuance to the gameplay, and just make it to where you actually have to pay attention to what you're doing. Use a grenade, shoot the one with the SWAT armor first before you shoot everyone else. And this is one of the ones that Michael is experimenting with that we're going to have to come back to, because you figure we're looking at making it to where the nighttime is a little bit more scary. Because right now, there's no real skin in the game if you go out at nighttime. It doesn't matter. It's the same time as day. So it's one of those things where we're going to look at seeing if we can come out with some infected variants that thrive or are faster or more aggressive at night. So if we can cut out after dark, means that you're actually more inclined to call for help. Get a vehicle out. Get a helicopter out. You lose track of time. You get stuck out in behind enemy territory. Well, then there are certain infected types that will start swarming the area. that are like stalkers, that are like, the monsters from Dying Light. So it's something that he's prototyping with like this guy, where it's kind of more of like a Dying Light type enemy, where it's like they're very fast, they kind of go around in groups, they're kind of like creepy sounds and whatnot, and they just basically hunt you. So like if you're in a red or a yellow zone after dark, and they know you're there, someone's seen you, you've done some damage, it flags that zone, and then the system would be like, okay, let's play, and it would get you to leave by any means possible. They'd use whatever resources they have available to them to dispatch and send out kill teams at night, to where it's like, okay, like, it's not just the investigations that, like, when you hit them, it's not just the attacks when they're trying to get you out of their zones or expand, but technically it'd be a third layer of that, where I have to come up with a new system for that, which I'll do, where it'd be like, hey, like, let's actually do some patrols. So realistically, we just call it a patrol system for the faction manager, because then that way other groups could use this system later down the line, where it's like we increase patrols or decrease patrols, where we do our loop every 15 seconds to evaluate the state of the world. We'd be like, oh, this area is in a conflict zone. They keep making incursions. Let's up the patrol score. And when we have some available resources or some available pop, let's spawn in little Timmy and his group, because we know at nighttime I like to go in. So we can basically store some kind of data or some kind of like track or timeline that basically says like this area keeps escalating. Let's address this. Let's try and put some pressure on them. So going in is not going to, we're not going to only respond once they hit us. We're going to try and respond before they hit us if they keep consistently doing it. The biggest issue is just making sure that whatever is on the ground can also attack the air because of helicopters. So that's something that we're going to have to experiment with, because we have some ideas that we were talking about digital. A couple of the other cats, when we're sitting on Discord, we just kind of spitball ideas and discuss in terms of like the player strategies and the counter strategies of like making sure every variation of gameplay is thought of. And we're not trying to punish one group or the other, but we want to make sure the game is challenging. We don't want it to be where you're just falling asleep in an idle zombie simulator 2025. So just keep in mind that we're always kind of conscious of that distinction, and we're trying to basically like refine and tweak as we go. I think it was about 3 new ones. It was little Timmy, Ricky, and that guy came in this week. And then we'll be meeting this coming week to get a couple more in, 3 to 4 more in, get some more girls in. And then from there, refine their shaders, make them tweak their materials, maybe bring down the flushness of their skin a little bit, to where they're not as pale, because they're not supposed to be like super overly like generic zombies. It's more like the rage virus from 28 Weeks Later, so we'll have to tweak that and adjust it. But yeah, this guy's that's whole new. But so there's go.
Related to these variants you've mentioned as well. Let's see here. Urban Yokai mentions firefighters, as in turned firefighters, would negate flamethrowers.
Oh, that's a good idea. I like that, because it's fire resistant. So we could do that very easily. The hardest part for what you're suggesting is literally just making the firefighter mesh. Once that's in there, our systems that we've already built, we can literally have it to where like, we can literally have it to where it's like, oh, hey, like using a flamethrower is like an 80%, 70% damage reduction. So you have to use, an M4 or a SCAR or, a higher caliber gun to pierce through the armor or whatever. So, yeah, what you're saying is totally doable. What do you think?
Additionally, we have several people in the chat mentioning, when you were mentioning the different variants of infected, the National Guard as a potential.
And that's the other thing, is that you figure, and I've been writing this down on my whiteboard for basically like ideas, because I've been sitting on Discord just talking to some people when I was feeling better. I've been kind of hiding this week, but you figure essentially it was National Guard, it was medics, it was paramedics, it was the reserve in some cases, it was police, SWAT. And then you'd have your normal city civilians, like the secretaries and all the other stuff. And each one would have different characteristics, like what you're saying, where it's like you could get less with more, if that makes any sense. Where it's like, yes, there's a model variation, but if you're thinking about it constructively, there's little permutations of gameplay you can make where it's like people would have to alter their strategy when they see certain people, where it's like bring the flamethrower back because there's like 2 or 3 firefighters running towards us with fire axes, and send in the people forward with the M4s and the scars and the saws because they're gonna just dice them up. So that way, again, I think it would help out the gameplay so greatly, and it would basically improve the gameplay loop in Legacy, where it was like, yeah, this is good, but it could be better. And that's been the whole point of the rebuild, is to basically just kind of improve those elements of gameplay and not just stagnate. So I think it's going to be a solid evolution in terms of the progression, the direction we're going in. I don't know. Was there any other questions that you want to bring up, Derek, for what you saw?
Just was keeping an eye on chat there a little bit.
All right, cool. So you figure there's that. That's what Michael's been working on. He's been kind of just powering through, getting some more infected variations in. I will show one more thing before we move on for the infected and the ambience. So one of the things that I was working on was the system we had in Legacy was how they would make ambient noise. They would make noise based off of being excited, and they'd make noise based off of just being idle. And the idea is that was your audio cues to know, like, am I discovered? Do they know I'm here? So if I put in a little guy, I'll put in a couple. And I hit the play button. I'll make sure the audio is working so you guys can hear the game. Hold on. No, you aren't? Good. Okay, audio should be working. Let me boost the sound. I don't know if people will be able to hear it on Discord is the only thing. That's annoying. I'm going to have to seriously figure out why it does that. Oh, wait. Come on. What did you kill? How did you find me? All right. Hold fire. And then what we're going to do is we're going to unmute the engine. Oh, we need to kill you. So you can hear the ambient noise now. Similar to like when you play Company of Heroes, and you would hear them in the Fog of War for like the tank engines running or whatnot. It was an idea we had in Legacy, but it hasn't been implemented in the rebuild. But the idea is that
do you have something for me to fix?
They make a different series of sounds when they're just in the area, just idling, doing random shit. And then when you actually engage them,
hostiles moving.
They basically make their chittering sounds, and they'll make like a little bit
Move
more
or
like
lose it.
the turbo. He's fucked. Okay, maybe I'll spawn in a couple more. Because the problem with little guys is that if you only have one on one, you're probably dead if you don't kill it almost
I'm
immediately.
at your call.
So if I do
There are
this,
so many of them.
and then I run.
I'm locked and loaded.
I don't know what's wrong with that guy. But you can see that he's making
Give
a
me an
chirping
order.
sound. Huh. Maybe I put him in the ground. Or he could be in a bad net. Oh, you know what? That's why. The vehicle was there, and it was pre-placed, so it left an imprint in the level. That's why he wasn't moving. So let me just fix that now.
Give me
now,
more
if
work
I
to
move
do.
and run,
I think I see
yeah, now
something
they'll both
moving.
run. It was
Give
from
me
that
an
debug
order.
vehicle that was there previously. So they make their sounds, where it's like the chitter chatter, and it's basically like the little like weird sounds that they make. And the idea is that each infected type does different
What can I do
ambient
for you?
sounds, and I did an audio pass. Basically, like what they sound like when they move, what they sound like when they impale you, what does it sound like when they die. God, these guys are fucking devastating.
Huh?
I think right now everyone's saying that there is an enemy in the game.
I love it.
I had to figure out how that can happen.
I've got you, sir.
Let's see if he's over there.
No sweat. I
Yeah,
love
they
hard.
got him. So I do a little chirping. I do little sounds here and there. And then if I go to the next one, and I go to Chelsea, pretty sure. Oh, right. Okay, no, I still have to set her up. That was when I first got sick. So she's not set up yet. So let's put the Juggy in. I know I set him up. So you can now hear the juggernauts. Let's zoom out a little bit. Okay, that's weird. He's playing the wrong sound, so I think that might be a change from the infantry
I'm at your call.
spec sometime over the week.
Now that shot.
I think he plays the right
Feel
sound.
all day.
Well, I've just been me because I've been checking my audio settings, but people in chat are also mentioning that screen share audio may be muted. Because while I am hearing you when I mess with the volumes, it only affects the volume of your
Let
voice. I
me
don't hear
stop
anything
it
coming
and
out of
start it
the
again. Hold on.
actual stream. 'Cause I was wondering if it was just me because no one in chat was saying anything, but Ice Bunny mentioned it, and I'm like, okay, it's not just me. I need to mention it now.
Oh, that's weird. That's why. Because they only allow you to stream your microphone on a webcam thing. So I would have to. Well, let me think. Okay, I got it. I know how to fix this. I would do this. So whenever I stream something with audio, I gotta stream the program directly, and then stop and restart the Steam. So now I know for next time at least, because this is a
Engineer,
limitation
ready.
on Discord. But anyway, Michael also reduced the size of the AOE slam, so it's not nearly as devastating as it was before, because it was just way he also increased the range of the power that he gets at the enraged state. At 50% health, the Juggernaut gets enraged, which is when you see you beat his chest. And then he basically gets a health boost and a damage boost. Chelsea gets the same thing. And the enraged state is basically something that me and Michael were experimenting with in certain infected, where they can choose to use it or not based off of their unique characteristics as we balance and tweak the game.
Give
And
me
we
an
can give
order.
them like an injuring animation where they play like I'm pissed. I realistically it's an idea from one game, but it gives a little bit
What?
more nuance to like okay, like there's actually but there's definitely something wrong with the infected state. They're not all playing the proper sounds that they should. It's probably was a regression from some of the optimizations that we're going to show from the custom game options I'm going to show in a second. Let me just put in the spitter and see if he does it as well. And if he, oh wait, could it have been because, yeah, I think it's because I was using hold on.
I love hard work.
Bro even is asking, when is saving going to
Sure,
be an option?
why
It's a
not?
big playthroughs and just need to save.
Next month, around January. So based off of the poll that we did, if people wanted to do the vehicles and doctrines first, so that would be before we do the operator polish and like the other like minor things that we need to tune up before the December sale. So that has to happen before the December Christmas sale regardless, because we're aiming to have in the next 30 days, we're like after doctrines and the vehicles, the next major thing would have to be the save system. Like we have to get that in there because that's what the poll announcements was basically voting for. So and that would probably be 3 to 4 days between me and Derek collaborating, and then another 2 or 3 days to hunt down bugs and issues that present themselves from it. So that would be like right before middle of December-ish is what I would say. I know game sessions are getting longer as we add in more mechanics and systems, as the game gets harder, especially with custom game options. But we wanted to try and we put the poll out there. We did it. It won by, I think it was like 60% to 30%. I think what it was. So it's one of those things where I've been working on the save system on and off, regardless. So there are sections of the game that save and load, but it's just getting it to a point where we're ready to make the UI and just get everything else situated. So just bear with us. Give us a couple more weeks to iron out what you see, and then that'll be the next line item.
I'm at your
just
call.
for us to bang out. So let me see if he's going to play nicely. Yeah. Wait, no, that's not the right. That's not the right sound. No, so something's wrong with their spec table. Oh, you know what that might be? Hold on. Live game design. I think I know what that is. Yeah, it's this. Why is it? What's weird is the little guy plays his. Huh. If I had to guess, something got de-linked from this struct. It might be a change from the custom game options. I don't know. I'm going to look into this on Monday because you figure I'll just play the sounds raw here so you get an idea, but it's something I'll have to refine. So like if I do this, that's the idea is that like you figure if they play different sound cues on the 5-4. So this one right here is in combat, and this one right here is idle, or curious. So like you figure they're just looking around, they're exploring, they're trying to find something to do. And each one basically has different infection states where they play those sounds. But it seems like everyone's falling back on the infected state one. And those are the sounds that you've come to know and love from Legacy. They're just being set up again, so that way you have some more audio cues, and they were hyper optimized for the things that we've learned over the last couple of years of like, don't try and play a sound cue on every individual AI. That's weird and stupid. Limit it by camera distance, by square distance checks. Manage it from a faction manager that does it locally. Don't try and replicate it. Every person can hear the sounds, locally at different times. It's not the end of the world. So you figure it's little things like that we're just kind of refining and tweaking just to get it to the point where it's like it's still the faction manager that tries to keep everything in synchronization to the closest possible, but it's not going to bottom out your network trying to keep in lockstep someone from like Europe and America hearing a sound at the exact same millisecond for like a spitter making a bird chirp. They'll be roughly up on the same timeline of time, linked, whatever, but it's not going to try and like do it all within like one frame and one burst. So this is something that I was prototyping and working on going before I like KO'd. And this is something I'm going to clearly have to refine and tweak because there's some instance of it where it malfunctions. But this is the rough idea. And then that way, as we add new infected types, or if we want to add ambient sounds that are outside the normal for like a new infected type, we just add it to our struct and do our thing here. This will be a test. Go, Gary.
Yeah, because for a lot of like the specific sound synchronization and stuff, while that sounds like a nice thing to have, it's not actually that important of a thing to share out there, and not many people actually even do it to the point where make sure that every single person hears the exact same sound at the exact same time. Because the randomization of the sounds here, especially when it comes to zombie noises, it's not something like that would need to take up that network cost. That would be better spent on making sure that the game is running more smoothly. Even large games like Marvel Rivals, for example, when characters are having conversations with each other, those aren't synced up between people, and they're not even saying the same lines to each other.
Same thing, I think.
So this is, I'm not touched Overwatch there yet, but that does sound like a similar thing you would do there, because that's not critical network traffic that needs to be done. When there's a lot of other things that could be that traffic cost could be used for.
You do an A, B, or C combination, and then at that point you're like, hey, play these local sound cues. Play these local sound cues for that instance over there. So that way people are having different communication or different dialogue here and there. Now what you could do is you could always have like an ARM-rep payload where it basically cues it, and then it sends it out at a rate. But those are all things that we get to experiment with, play with, see how it feels. So it's like,
Yes. Because it would be nice to have certain things in terms of like sounds or effects or physics or things like that sync up in certain ways, but those would be niceties and polish down the road rather than things that we want to dig into our net cost budget at the moment before we have time to optimize it when we're still building the game's framework. John Cameron also asks, is there a plan to make infected say stuff like help me?
Chelsea does that. So the biggest thing, that's why I was trying to show it, and I guess I didn't set it up because I was delirious that day. But one of the things that I have to do was set it up for Chelsea because she has a bunch of audio cues that are just creepy as all hell. Like, there's like 100 lines of dialogue recorded for Chelsea, and in Legacy, it was a small like incubator of that. So I wanted to go in and set that up, and I'm going to be setting it up this week with the vehicles and all that. They're going to fix that what I just showed you guys, and then add in some minor audio cues that are missing for Chelsea. Get the vehicles, and then get back on Chelsea's AI. But you figure like, yeah, no, like there's going to be some for Chelsea when it comes to like the standard infected. All of them, they've already lost their minds. They're already subservient to Chelsea as the hive mind thing. So for them, they're not going to really kind of have that level of autonomy. But here, what I wanted to show really quickly is this. So we got the custom game options last week. I've been working on the patch notes for I think a week now at this point. So I need to just put the damn patch notes out on Steam. But
stream seems to have
hold
stopped.
on. Let me go ahead and put it back to the virtual camera. Okay, so essentially we got this set up where essentially it was, rather Derek's been working diligently on this and getting this set up in terms of basically daytime mode, starting hour, starting money, stock income, gas towers, gas tower range, unit infection rate, gas mass duration, initial population capacity, garrison tent population amount. You can get in there and you can kind of tweak these to your heart's content and make the game as hard or as easy as you'd like it to be. I know that it's really popular, or we were testing it earlier in the week, to do nighttime raids, where you start the game at around 1800, and then that way you can essentially make it to where you can start at nighttime, and and it's just really cool. You turn on global illumination, and the map is very dark. So let's see. So like there's that, and then. Well, when you get a chance, digital, you'll have to explain that in a bug report and tag Derek.
He already has, and he already has
Okay,
tagged me,
well,
but
yeah.
I was doing vehicle work. Sorry, I hadn't gotten around to
All right,
testing
well,
that
we'll
part
get to
yet.
it. So you figure one of the things that you can also go here and go custom, and you can set how long nighttime is, or daytime and nighttime is. So if you want to make it to where the days are longer, the nights are shorter, or you can make the nights really long, on the daytimes in the middle. It's kind of whatever you feel like at that moment. Or you can change these live in the game as well. And then starting hour, do that. Starting money, 200K. Stock income, increase it. Turn off the infected gas towers. Decrease or increase their range. We put this all the way up to max and people were crashing out. It was so funny. I kept asking people, do you want me to lower it? And they were like, no, it's fine. I'll deal with this death and suffering. Turn the infection rate up all the way. Turn up the gas mass duration so you can be in the gas zones for longer or less. And then infection rate is basically like when someone melees you. So it doesn't count for acid. But when people that are infected hit you physically, it infects your unit. Especially Chelsea. So this would make it to where just by getting hit, it simulates a bite or a scratch that would effectively turn your unit, essentially. So just be aware of that. You have initial population capacity, garrison tent, and then if I go to infection options, I can make it to where everyone walks. So that way it's like, 20, it's like basically like a traditional zombie game. I can turn off the juggernaut, the blow-up guy, the spitter, the brute. I'll only leave on the standard infected and only leave on the builders because those are required. Oh, wrong one. The builders, so those are required. I can reduce their health, increase their health, decrease their melee damage, increase their melee damage, so I can make this guy a glass cannon. I make it to where he is like 0.5 of what his normal health is, but he has 10 times his damage. I can go to the standard infected, and because I made them only walk, I can 10 times their health, 5 times their melee damage to account for them only being able to walk. And that way, all the system's going to do is spawn infected standards and mask them at you. So you can kind of get the game that you want in your head out in Cepheus. And if you guys have suggestions for other game emulators, like now that the ground vehicles are in, technically we probably should have added in the gas and the ammo settings here. So we'll probably have to go back and do that in the next week or so, where we're gonna have to put in like the gas consumption and the oh yeah, technically we're missing gas and ammo for Legacy. But yeah, fuck. So yeah, we'll have to get to that. Is basically put those in there. So I'll put that on the Trello. Is get those in there for like gas and ammo. So you can have infinite ammo or like no reloads, infinite gas, you know, that kind of stuff. So we'll get that in there the next week or so. Rounding out the month or so, and then we'll see you guys have some more options. Cause I know those are like ones that are really popular in Legacy, and people would turn that on there, and basically just like have fun. Presets, you can save your presets. So I could go. What would I call this? Walking zombies only. CERC test 2. Great. So then now I can switch between these presets, and I can save these presets on the Steam Workshop. So in the game, we bundled this. We're still experimenting with this, so let us know what kind of feedback, basically, in terms of how the tool works. But we reorganized the mod directory. So there's a folder called Pandemic Settings Presets. And you can see that when I created those presets, it created these folders. So my test preset 1 is right here. And my walking zombies only is in walking zombies only. And it creates a JSON file. So if those modders out there in the world that don't want to sit there and do it inside the SDK, they can load into this JSON file and tweak it to their heart's content. This is basically our mini modding, just to kind of allow people to adjust and tweak the game how they want their game to play. Because Pandemic is always going to be one of those things where it's like your zombie simulation. It's not a canon. So, sorry. You could go through. You could tweak all this. There are some values in here, like custom game settings, that allows us to invalidate older ones if something's removed. So we can have a pop-up appear. It's like, hey, this was removed, or it was repurposed, or it was renamed. So we can do a check that pops up on your window that says, like, please check preset 5, 8, 10, 20, whatever it's named, because these settings were deprecated, they were moved around, they were renamed, X, Y, and Z. So just be aware of that. Please don't change the game settings version, because you're going to fuck up your preset in the future. Just whatever the engine prints it to is what you keep it at. But this is our little system. The other system we were working on last week, to get situated. I think it's really, really cool. I uploaded my own little workshop mod as a test. I made a new category, so let me go to files you posted. Wrong one. I need to actually put oh yeah, I was working on one here actually. So Dark Director's Cut mode, and basically, it allows you to upload an image, and then you can give it a description, and you can kind of tweak the game to your heart's content. And then the idea is you can sub it here, and when it's subbed, next time you close and reopen the game, it'll show up on the presets tab. So then that way you guys can go and make your own presets. And naturally, as the system gets more complicated, you guys will make more or less, and we'll just kind of tweak here and there. So like, let's say if I load into Black Tide, and I launch. I'm going to show you guys one more thing, because this is how you're going to be able to refine your presets live. And I still think there's some room for, that's the word I'm thinking of, expansion, evolution, to make it to where it's a little more easier to work with. We were talking to a lot of people on the public Discord improvement. Yeah, again, I'm a little bit out of it, so I apologize. But you figure refinement, improvement, whatever, to make it to where you can tweak the settings live. So we were looking at how other games do it, like Jurassic World. And we were like, hey, well, why don't we experiment with that? So Derek had the idea. I was like, Derek, I don't know if that's going to take too much time. We're on time crunch. I don't know if we can put that much time into this right now. And he was like, and he did it in like a half a day. And I was like, well, fuck it. You already did it. It works. It's great. We'll just put it in and do it live. So you figure you can tweak and turn them on and off, basically like live in the actual thing is the idea. I definitely already see a bug.
You can
Oh, wait,
tweak
that's
them
not a
live,
bug.
but several of the
Oh, yeah,
but
sorry.
when you tweak unit settings, several of the settings, as you can see the note there, will not affect ones that have already spawned. So if you spawn a Juggernaut with 10 times health, and he is able to run, and you regret all of your decisions up until that point in your life that led you to make that decision, you will not be able to fix that Juggernaut. He still will have
Yeah,
10
that's an
health even if you
optimization thing.
unset it.
Because like you figure,
So,
if someone can't make up their mind and keeps changing it every 5 seconds, you're going to break the engine. They're going to break the game. Because then we have to run through and update everything in the entire map every time you do it. So that was done more in a sanity check for people that are constantly changing the slider every second, every couple of seconds, like whatever. So the idea is that you figure, like what he said, spinners, if I turn them off, that would, if I turn them back on, they wouldn't start spawning for probably a couple minutes. Like, so if you go and you start harassing them with the little bird, and then you turn it on, spinners are going to turn off for probably it's both ways. So the idea would be is that like, if they just spawned recently, then they're going to stay in the game until the system kills them or they get themselves killed. But if like you get lucky, because the system evaluates doing actions every 15 seconds for the faction manager to keep it manageable, and we'll refine that and tweak that as we go into like, the game testing and all that stuff. But if you hit it exactly at that 15-second interval, they're still going to spawn. But if you turn it off right now and then you go and do an attack with sparrows, they shouldn't spawn because basically it doesn't queue them until basically that 15-second evaluator, and it's like, oh, I'm under attack, and these systems have basically flagged this area for killing you. I need to send in spinners as the counter, so when it evaluates it, it would throw it out. It'd be like, we can't send spinners, so send standard infected or something. So, sorry. That's going to require some testing and refinement for a balance sake. But again, if you're turning off units, you know what you're doing. So if the game gets too easy or if it gets too hard, here, they would be dragons. Turning off the spinners, turning off the juggernauts is well within your guys' purview. But just keep in mind the game was balanced around all the classes. So you might run into some situations of facing. But that's in a nutshell. Like I could go here and I can change the gas range tower live. So if you decide later down the line, I really don't like 400% gas towers, you can change it and it will update those in real time in the map. Sock income, same thing. Nighttime, daytime does change in real time. So and you can also set it to static where people like to take pictures. So what that means is that the clock will still count. But the weather, the state of the world stays the same. So like,
yeah, the day-night cycle will basically freeze in place, even though your clock at the bottom left will run. The sun will not. It'll stay still. The moon will stay still, and you'll have a static view of the world as it is right now.
That beautiful picture, like right here, that's gonna stay like that forever. But the show must go on. So like you figure people like to take pictures, take montages, take like whatever, machinima or whatever, they could go in and they can set it to static and then they can sit there and frame it. They're like, oh, I really like this time of day. I like the way the sun, the lighting works. I just want to play at this time all day, all night, whatever. It's your guys' purview. So, what?
I'm also seeing an issue here. You can see at the clock at the bottom left is not advancing as fast as it normally would. So I'm thinking that when you set it to static, that it somehow did not properly reset the daytime.
Right. So like if I go back to custom.
Yeah, it doesn't reset that when you set it to static there. I think it does when you set it to normal. I think it resets it, but not when you set it to static. So that was a bit of an issue there that probably needs to be resolved. I'm going to slap that onto trailer.
Yeah, you're right. Now it's going faster. It's not resetting it.
I'm also... Yeah, I'm going to just slap that onto
the worst case, either you or I can get to that on Monday.
Static time. Yeah. Fix doesn't reset when change. Doesn't resets custom timescale values. If you change custom timescale values, then switch to static after.
Cool.
Okay. And okay, that card exists. I'm gonna have to wrap for now.
I appreciate you having it. Yeah.
Take care. Have a good one, y'all.
But yeah, that's in a nutshell of the custom game options that came in last week, and we weren't able to show it off on Saturday. Well, last CERC HQ, But a lot of the previous week went into getting this system set up and getting us a good foundation to whatever we want to allow customizable in the future. Working out the back end for these JSON files, doing the research and figuring out how to do that in Unreal. Setting up the modding ecosystem, so then that way you can essentially be able to, do your own thing, mod your game to a certain degree of these presets. I'm working on a automated mod upload tool. There's an early version of it shipped in the mods folder for Cepheus Protocol under upload mod, but it requires you to go and download Steam CMD and put it into this folder here. Like, I have it in my version, but you guys aren't. I'm pretty sure. Let me see. Yeah, I'm pretty, because they don't allow you to upload Steam CMD as part of a patch for a game. So each person has to go and download Steam CMD. So I'm either going to have to change the way I'm doing this bat file, because if I run it, it basically is going to ask you, what do you want to do? Are you uploading a new music mod? Are you uploading a new pandemic settings preset mod? Or are you updating an existing workshop item or exit? So the idea is that it prints out the directory of your mod's root, and then it asks you, what mod are you uploading? So you can upload mods that are in the local directory of radio music and pandemic setting presets just like that. So it'd be like, hey, I just made a new preset. So if I go here, I made walking zombies only. So the idea would be is that I would go over here. Let's see if it's going to work live. So if I go here and I copy that and I go to upload new pandemic preset, and then I do the folder name. So I right click that in there and press enter. And then what's the visibility? I'm going to do friends only. And then it's going to ask you to log in. So then I'm going to move this over here. And then there it goes. So basically, I logged into my Steam account, and it basically connected to Steam. It's patching that because like Steam does backend updates to their upload tool. This is how mod and workshop and game developers upload their games to Steam. Is they have to run it through a bat file. So the same way that workshop people are pushing mods out, are the same way that game developers are pushing out their games. So the idea is that you have to go and get this program, Steam CMD, from the Steam website, put it in this folder, just the exe by itself, run the bat file, and then you can see in this example, it patched it from Steam servers. Well, at first it tried to upload. Then it was like, there's an available update. So I did the available update, and then it went back to what I asked it to do. Where it was like, okay, we updated. Now let's prepare it. Let's upload it. Upload complete. Check the Steam Workshop page for details. So then I hit this key. It goes back. And then if I go and refresh here, there's my mod. Now I can go change visibility and put it to public. I can assign the name, the description. I can assign and I can add images. Attach a YouTube video. And that way you can make your walking preset. So now I could sub this. But the only problem would be is that there'd be a duplicate now. Because you'd have this version, which is on the Steam Workshop. I think you'd have the duplicate version right here. You have 2 walking zombies only. So realistically, you would never sub your own mod on the Steam Workshop because you already have a local copy of it in the local root directory. But that was something else that I wanted to work out and make it to where it was very easy. It required no technical knowledge to make mods or presets, radio music for the game to open up the floodgates for the Steam Workshop. Because you figure a healthy game is a healthy modding ecosystem. Even if it's as simple and archaic as the music and the presets, it's a precursor to other things that will precede it. So you figure this tool would eventually be updated for total conversions and skin packs and sound packs and balancing pack ones. But it's a good start. And as you can see, I was able to upload a mod in 30 seconds. Now I can share it, put it up on Steam, or put it on our Discord, share it on the Steam forums, and be like, hey, does someone want to try my difficulty for Cepheus, a challenge run? You know, and that way, because I know Phoenix and Krieg and a couple other people on the Discord, they like to challenge each other, like, do this, change those settings, do this, do that, whatever. Well, now they can have a pre-agreed upon rule set, a preset per se. People sub, and they rate, and they share, and they comment, and it's updated, basically, every time that we add new custom game options. Of like, hey, maybe they want to make it to where... sorry. They want to make it to where, you know, gas has more consumption. Ammo costs money, costs more money. Because you figure that's one of the things that we're going to be doing when we add in the MRS. We've been biding our time. But eventually, the ammo tents and the medical tents are going to incur of cash to basically resupply bullets, gas, ammo, logistics. So when we put that in there, some people might not like that. We'll have the option. Turn it off. Go back to playing how you were playing a couple months ago. But the people that do want that level of difficulty, because the problem is that when we add the MRS, I already know what people are going to do. They're going to put an ammo tent or a motor pool down somewhere on an island, park 3 MRSs, GG, delete the whole map. Because you figure they were just broken. And they were broken in a good way because they're tier 3 super units. But there has to be some monitor of a balance there. So our approach to that in the rebuild, when we got to that point and putting the vehicles in, at least for the MRS's sake, was having it to where ammo tents and medical tents aren't infinite and they have finite supplies. And when they run out, they have to basically pay money to have something get delivered to essentially bring them back, their supply back up. And each one would have different supply rates. And then that would trickle down into doctrine upgrades, where you'd want to do the doctrine upgrades to improve your... Because some of these settings are going to be doctrine upgrades, where it's like unit infection rates, gas mass durations, you know, garrison tent population amounts. Those will be things that we'll put into like something on the doctrines tree, where you can increase the amount of money you're making via socks or garrison tent on the utility tab, or it's like that way people can make the logical decision of like, I want more money from my socks. I want more tent population from my tents or whatever. I want to lower the chance of units getting infected when they get tapped by someone. I want to increase the duration of time that they're in the gas zones. So I'm talking ahead, obviously, but it's just one of those things where it's like these systems are in here is almost like a... they set this, now the system's in here, we can use the same system we use for custom game options and do a multiplayer, a system on top of it. It's like, oh, hey, like, that upgrade increases this, but then you also have this, so they can nullify each other or cancel each other out. Obviously, the custom game options are going to be the highest level. So just be aware of that, and there's a reset. So if you really fuck up your game live, just reset it. Reset the individual unit. Reset everything as a whole. It'll put it back to stock. You can see right there, the game went from the sun being there to not being there because it fast forwarded. It caught you up to where you'd be in real life. So you were taking your pictures, taking your videos, whatever you were doing. You just wanted to play at a certain time of day, and then you reset everything and you unpause the game. It's going to fast forward the weather system to where it should be, where the sun should be, and all the other fun stuff. Now, as it stands right now, I don't have a timeline on this yet, but one of the other things technically we have to do before we do civilian evacuation and dynamic civilian groups is we need to get the weather system back in, and we need to get the moon back in. Because right now, this star map needs to be severely downplayed by 90 to 80%, and then we need to get the moon system in. So we were talking about this in a recent poll on, hold on. Not that. I don't want to Google that. I was looking at something else the other day. Unreal Engine day-night cycle. So one of the things that we're looking into is basically the day and night system that they have in Unreal. What they added in 5.5. No, it's not this. I'll have to find it later. But the idea is that we're looking into updating to a newer version of Unreal Engine around the time next month that we do the operator and just general polish across the project for the Christmas sale. And let me see if I can bring that up. Unreal Engine. What was it called? roadmap. So basically, they have this website. And this website is essentially all the features that game developers get when they update newer versions of the engine. So you figure it's one of those things where we're looking at some of the features that are coming down the pipe that have already came down the pipe in 5.6, 5.5, and 5.7 that came out a couple of days ago. And we're like, okay, there's a lot of performance improvements. There's other tweaks. There's a lot of improvements they made to characters, rendering, animations, Niagara, physics simulations, trees, you name it. So there's always a pro and a con to when we're looking at these systems and we're like, okay, what is this going to break? Because it's always going to break something. It's some of those are going to be far-reaching implications that we don't even realize they're broken for weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Of like, it compiles and opens, but then that one system doesn't work anymore, or they move weird, or the performance gets worse, and that kind of stuff. So I think that it's one of those things where this is something we're looking at doing sometime either late next month or potentially even put it off for later on. Because like you can see stuff like this is perfect for like boat simulation. You know, being able to like play around with the LCAC and just kind of do that kind of stuff. Because like how the LCAC is inflatable. So it's just different things that we're looking at, and I wanted to address that from the ping I made about 2 weeks ago, where it was like after 5.7 came out. Well, it's like different things that we need to like play around with, install it. Because like render parallelization is just improving the cost of rendering, less strain on your video card. They basically, you know, do more dynamic, well, spacing it out, whatnot. So yeah, it's just one of those things where there's something else that we're looking into long term, going into like the end of this year, maybe even as late as next year. Because like chaos destruction is a good example, where it's like, the current chaos implementation we have in 5.4 is okay. It works. But it wasn't made like battle tested and completely done until 5.5, I think it was. 5.5, 5.6 is when they said that chaos was like functionally like balanced and performant and optimized, and that they'd done enough battle testing in Fortnite to the point where they were like, okay, you could use this in your projects, and we can guarantee within a good margin that it's not going to blow up your end. It's not going to crash your game and be crazy. So those are things that basically like we're looking at. So just be aware of that. That's something else that we're kind of like looking at. And it's just, we're going to be putting that off a little bit longer to get the vehicles and the Ajax and the doctrines in. And then that might be something that we also look into run the same system. Is do a quick test run to upgrade to 5.6 or 5.7 and see how well it takes. And if we have any major regressions or issues, we'll probably put it off for another month or two and potentially do it before civilian evacuation. And then go back and do some hyper polish to the vehicles, the destructions. And just little things here and there they improved for like a good 2 to 3 week like polish period. But it'll just kind of depend. Because I don't want to rush civilian evacuation or dynamic civilian groups. I want to kind of make sure everything that came before it is perfect, it's performant, it's playing, there's no take back seats, it's good to go. So we don't make the same mistake of like trying to do a new major mechanical system and then the foundation that it's on is not solid, or you know, we try and like make everyone too happy and do every mechanical system at the same time, and it's like for 2 programmers it's just not possible. If you had like a whole like a 8-10 programmers, it'd be possible, but it's not. So yeah, there's that in a nutshell. With that setup and those custom game options we've done. Let me check my list, and then we're going to move into the Q&A. And then let me down my coffee, and then we'll do a play test with the vehicles. So I'll cook a build. We're going to need at least about 10 to 15 minutes to make that road change. Because there's no way not even I want to play it until they favor the roads. And it's only going to work on Half Moon Bay. And it's only going to work on Treasure Island. Because if I show nav, oh, nope, not going to work here either. Because the roads aren't set up correctly for the road nav. Only Treasure Island has the road set up. So we'll go and we'll play test Treasure Island tonight. For anyone that wants to play with us. We'll get a big session going. We'll get the Ajaxes in. We'll play it on Treasure Island, open the Bay Area map for a couple of hours, see how it feels, write some notes down. I could document some stuff for Derek, and that'll let us know what to prioritize going into Monday. so we can try and get these vehicles to a point of being fucking done by Friday. Crossing my fingers from a pathfinding standpoint. Okay, so let me check my notes. Let's see. Oh, I will mention this. I know there's a backlog of bug reports in their supporters channel, in the Discord, and the Steam. I'm pretty much the only one doing most of the bug reports right now, and as you guys know, I've been sick for the last week and a half. So once I'm actually back to working on shit is when I'll start catching up to your bug reports. So I'm not ignoring them. It's more so I can't physically do them. I've just been getting on to do the bare minimum I can do to make sure things are functioning and working. And then now that ideally I'm getting to a point by at least Monday, so Sunday, that I can basically get back and get programming again. I'm going to be going in and hunting down some of the older threads first, and then going through some of the newer threads. I know some people were DMing me bug reports for some reason, and I was like, please don't do that, because I have to send it out to different people. So if you don't send me bug reports unless I ask for it in that moment where we're doing a playtest, otherwise make a forums thread, and basically if no one replies back to your forums thread in a week or so, then tag me. But you figure for right now, you already know why I haven't. So just be aware of that. We'll be getting through those bug reports starting around Monday-ish as I get caught up on everything again. One more thing I will mention is that there was a turret issue that we fixed. So let me know if you guys have that issue anymore. Is that if you built a turret and you had HESCOs or barbed wire in front of it, the HESCOs and barbed wire would block it. It was a regression from a tweak we made to solve a long-standing crash related to how we were using unit data for basically like the fog of war. So as far as I know, the crashes are rare now. Like you might get a crash every once in a while, but that major crash that we've had in the project for like 3 to 4 months, where like when there was too much going on and you had like multiple fronts going on, you get that seamless like fog of war crash. That was resolved over the last like couple of weeks, but the regression was that there was a failed check where sometimes the turret was checking its line of sight from its base instead of its barrel, and that would make it to where it would fail checks to shoot people because it was being blocked by the sandbag, the HESCO, barbed wire, whatever it was. So now it physically was adjusted to the muzzle, the socket of the spinning cylinder or whatever gun that you're firing. So let me know if you guys run into any issues, but we did test that pretty rigorously about a week ago. And that was something I do want to mention that it was resolved. So that should also fix their efficiency for like targeting from positions like this. Because previously, technically, they were like basically targeting from here. So they would miss stuff that was coming up the ramp. But based off of their physical height, they should be targeting from like somewhere around here. So they'll engage everyone here now. So let us know if there's any other issues of regressions with that, with the recent performance tweaks and changes that we made to the Fog of War, and we'll address those. Covered that. Let's see. Oh, the dancing trees were also fixed. So these trees were sometimes dancing. You guys can't see it anymore because we shadow patched it out a couple days ago. But basically, they would dance. I forget who reported it. One of the people that have been playtesting the game almost every day reported it on Discord. And I was like, oh, well, that's awkward. So I sent it over to my VFX guy, and it was because when we migrated over these tree materials from Legacy, a system wasn't talking properly to B system in terms of how fast the wind was. So it was oscillating the entire texture, basically. So that was resolved. That is fixed. And the weather system will see some more refinement as we get into like next month of just getting in the rain, the fog, and all the other shit back in, because that did affect that affected your troop viability, their targeting acquisition, how far they could see when fog was up, and all the other fun stuff. So it was small little dynamic elements that could fuck you, or could help you on a sunny day. So there's that, and then let's see. Yep, that's pretty much it. Now we're going to move into the Q&A, so I can basically, ideally, transition into fixing that road nav issue. Actually, I'm going to start fixing that now while we do the Q&A. So let me go ahead and just shut everything down. And then we're going to move into the Q&A tab. And then let's see what questions you guys have while I work on getting those vehicles situated. So if you asked the question previously in chat and Derek did not bring it to my attention, copy and paste that question and ask it again. Or if you want to talk on voice, you're welcome to raise your hand. Depending on the series, the amount of questions, we'll either shut it down and I'll run away to go do my other thing, or we'll stay here. We can stay here for 20, 30 minutes if people have good questions. I don't care. It's just having a dialogue. I just don't want to sit here. So, what questions do we have here? So, Irvin Yokai asked, not completely related, but going off ambience and immersion, sometimes in future updates, could we see infection growths on city buildings that expand with the zone? Maybe things like some cars on fire, or maybe blow up if the Abrams drives over them. So what you're talking about is something that my artist Dimitri is basically, waiting for me to say we're updating the 5.6, 5.7, because he wants to experiment with those systems in PCG. So if you've ever seen the Unreal Engine demonstrations or documentation where they show off like the tree growing and their foliage systems, we want to tie those into each infected structure so they have an aurora or an area around them where when they are placed down, they grow. That growth around them in a circle, even if it's small, it would at least give some kind of physical imprint to them being in the area. But yeah, that is something that we want to do. When it comes to like car destruction and all that, I'm going to be experimenting with some of that next week and talking to Dimitri to see if we can get figured out. But nothing on that yet that I can lock down as conclusive. But that is something we want to do long term. So I think Krieg wants to speak, so I'll invite him up. And then, Krieg, what's your question? And then I'm going to take YouTube for the next question.
I'm gonna
Yep.
by accident. I'm on my
Okay, what's that?
phone.
Oh, wait, that was on accident?
Oh no, that was an accident.
Did you want to talk about anything for your map while we wait for questions to pile in?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I probably should say
I told her the computer
map
blew up.
delay. Ooh, yeah. Oh yeah, the computer blew up. Terrible. But once I get the computer and the new one in, that's basically all I'm gonna be doing.
Did you want me to show them what you did last?
You could do. I don't know how bad it looks because like I can't remember what the very last commit was.
I'll load it up while I wait for
Can't remember if I
questions to
got all the
pile in,
loads in.
and then I'll breeze by it really quickly, because in that way it gives
Yeah.
people some time.
CL did have a question. What about FOB buildings that encourage players to push out into the map and a slightly changed pop cap based on the number of players and tie it into the operator
So
timer, etc.?
we see those as strategic resources. That's something else that Dimitri has kind of been like on my ass to get in. It's more so it's a really good idea. I don't want to stretch a city thinner than we already are, but that's something I want to do long term. If not in 1.3, 1.4, where we basically have like ammo, medical, like different things around the map that are finite resources that you can secure, but Chelsea can secure them as well for boost multipliers in whatever task she's doing in those zones. And she would prioritize those zones based off of those, I guess you could say, metrics of like, oh, if I do this, it'll be a boost. So I should go for those zones first and that zones. So yeah, just keep in mind that's something that we want to do long term. Let me see if I can open this up. And then I can go back to questions. I am not putting Juggernauts and singing Let It Go. You're horrible. Get out, Phoenix. Here's the last version of the map that Krieg was working on before his computer mech exploded from our creators. But basically, he was essentially working on a little coastal town that essentially was you had a fixed point in the center, and then you had a couple of like docking areas on the left that he was expanding and building out. and you were just kind of, and then you had like this little like park atrium area, and then you had over here like some residential homes and some commercial stuff here and there. So very very straightforward in terms of like something he was just kind of prototyping, and essentially just getting it to a point where like you can kind of jump in here and play it. Technically, like for another week or so, when he gets back into the map, it shouldn't be that much to get it to a point of playability, but we'll have to get in there and just kind of refine it and play test it and see how it feels when we get it out to you guys. Maybe change some of the more savvy buildings here and there. But I think it was going in a solid like direction for basically a smaller pandemic map that you can load in and play and potentially beat in like an hour or two. Because it's pretty small, but I mean, they all kind of fit their own purposes and like in terms of like.
Wasn't the prices?
Oh yeah,
of the
he's using this map as an incubator to torture you guys for prices of clearing landscapeable objects. So you can see like as I move around, you can see the cost of like 1,300 to clear these cars, 1,160 to clear that. Who's shooting?
cargo containers and the body bags are probably the.
Oh yeah, they're horrible. Kill all the dead bodies out. So you figure like there's a good little example of something he's been kind of experimenting with and just trying to find the prices, and then with the data we learn and what people like and what they don't like based off of this map, we'll adjust and tweak to basically roll it into the other maps and just keep tweaking it as we go. Because like I was telling them earlier, one of the things that you've been doing is kind of just experimenting to kind of figure out like, fair prices for clearing out the tiles, and then going up the chain and applying it to the base blueprint instead of the local instance. So then that way those settings replicate out to every level. Because like, there's a local system and there's a parent system.
Yeah.
You can set the removal cost lower in the level itself, but then you can right click, you can go to the blueprint and make a prefab and then set one that's consistent across all levels. So it's just one of those things that we're looking at to basically just kind of like play around with the removal costs and just make it to where it's not just like, fuck it, just remove the whole map while I'm at it.
Yeah, it falls back a lot on what you were talking about earlier, like with the progression of the game and how fast-paced it can be. Because I think that's the main reason why people say the game's too difficult. It's not exactly difficult for most players, but it's just how fast-paced it can be when you're trying to focus on getting small utility set up so you can have a standard base, get your operation off the ground. And everyone that you play with is typically just removing half the neighborhood, which is opening up far more lanes than you can deal with in the initial phase. Making it more pricey not only helps you kind of coordinate a bit better, think of where you want to land yourself, but also stops you from just rolling out in a large amount, which also probably negates the gameplay that you'll be doing, because there's no way for the infected to be funneled for you. So you can use the landscape to your advantage, and choose which is the cheapest route, which is ideal for you to put up defenses each zone, especially when you've got the capped turrets and capped watchtowers. Even if they do increase with sectors, depending on however that will be managed, it'll be a lot better that way with higher cost. I think with that map as well, even though there's going to be a lot of areas that you can unlock by landscaping out to allow your vehicles to move through or your personnel get to the other stocks a lot easier. The infected will still have routes to get to you regardless, because they will jump over walls in certain areas, or they'll just have certain areas where they'll be able to get through, like cracks in walls and stuff. Which there's one example of that you can see in the HMB or the co-op test map, with the way that how it would work in Horde, going through the gaps and the large walls that were there.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So it's just one of those things where like it's going to be interesting as that map kind of trickles down and kind of just gives us some ideas to play with for the other maps. And it's going to be just kind of an evolution as we go through it. Okay, so other questions, YouTube. Oh, thanks, bro. Even I appreciate that. I guess it was a gaming YouTube channel that was saying they've been following us since the start, and they keep saying that the game is getting better and better every time that they play it, and they appreciate it. And they were asking about the save system. It might have been the same person that was asking earlier on Discord, or maybe they just echoed the save system question. But yeah, to answer your question, if you didn't hear it earlier, it's going to be sometime next month after Doctrines and Vehicles. Let's see. Any other questions that we have before we wrap this up? And then I got to go work on the vehicles. Because I'm going to get that change in. Oh, there it is. Yeah, I just do it there. So I just make a new... Yeah, that's easy. Okay, I'll just do that now while I wait for someone to write a question.
Digital does have a question that was a bit ago. Is unit formation spacing coming back like it was in Legacy, as well as auto repair nearby structures with Y button for engineers, like in Legacy, and free ammo drop and med drop calling?
The medical drops and the ethical drops aren't coming to our doctrines.
Yeah.
The spacing the formations and all that and everything else will probably, I would probably say around doctrines, because you figure I've been so kind of focused on getting the bigger line items done that like the smaller ones like that have been kind of relegated to like a backlog list. Because people have been really honest to basically get like the vehicles and everything else. So I was just like, okay, fine. We'll put that off a little bit longer and see if we can't get some of the other more like bigger items in and then come back to those. So they're going to come. It's just not going to be immediately.
CL is providing more context on the FOBs that you mentioned earlier. And it says when I say FOBs, I mean a separate building that we can build in the field and works the same as an arrow tent. You can either have a person in the tower or a turret if upgraded to help lock down areas a little more. We wouldn't need to spam arrow tents all over. Kind of sounds like a mobile stock without the added income and having a defensive position from it. I don't know how that would be. I mean, realistically, you when the hammets come back in, you can always have a supply and 2 tower hammets with you. I would act like that, and you can roll them out the moment you secure that zone.
Okay, hold on. Let me answer that question. What was that question, Rin?
It's in Discord.
Seal's
the
question?
latest one.
514? Okay, sorry. We'll look at that real fast. So yeah, it's just for some context. When I say FOBs, I mean a separate building that we can build in the field. It works the same as the MO tent and can either have a person in the tower or a turret if upgraded. It'd help lock down areas a bit more, and we wouldn't need to spam MO tents all over. Thinking about that for a second. Hold on. Okay, well, I'm trying to understand. So you're basically saying a multi-purpose structure, or are you saying something else? I'm not understanding fully, like a module-based one. Because for right now, I would say no. I would say that that's not mission critical, and that would add on something that basically isn't needed right now. That's why we have the FOB, the medical tents, and the ammo tents, to basically for you to do your hops. That's why we'd have the Atlas resupply. That's why we were talking about this on and off in some of the playtests, is having it to where we could have a helicopter resupply version, like the Chinook, where you can get rid of its transport capabilities and it can land and resupply units, similar to what some other games do, like Red Dragon. But I would not add new structure type at this point. I would do small modifier changes like the Chinook, but I don't want to add anything new that drastic at this point. And then while you write a reply to that, I can't tell whose person's name is that, but he asks about the evacuation system. I'm having a bit of trouble wrapping my head about how the bus evacuation logic is intended to work. Would you be able to share what you have in mind for how the system is supposed to function or evolve? I'd love to understand the intention behind the design so I can use it in the way you envisioned. Buses' only purpose was to basically drive to nearby buildings, empty them, and get them back in one like quick flow. It's faster than them moving individually. It's less risky for them moving individually because it's a hard position that you can basically protect. When I would personally play civilian evacuation, I would build bus depots all over the map, send all of them to evacuate to one zone, and then start sending out teams to guard those buses to empty those zones of their populace so that Chelsea didn't have resources. So that's how I would play with the buses. That's whenever I play civilian evacuation, that was pretty much my strategy, and I would bust them in across the entire map. So, like, I would have the zones that were closer to me, they're coming in on the ground. There's no threat. No one's going to run out and maul them to death. Once I determined where Chelsea was and where I was, I'd go to the furthest point, and I'd basically just start, like, I would literally be busting them out of infection zones and sending them through the camps to get screened. So then that way I could get as many people out, and yes, I'd lose some buses, but then I'd still have my helicopters and my other units so I could go out there and keep them off of the buses. That's how personally I would play, and that's how they're intended. There's other variations of that. It just kind of depends on however you want to play, because you can also use them to ferry them from zone to zone, the hopscotch them away from conflict zones. But they're just meant as a quick way of getting, like, I think it was like 100 people, 100 people and change, really quickly from their designated building to wherever you are to get them to in an automated fashion. Okay. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, let me see what other questions we have. Okay, so I got the change in for the road nav for the helicopters for the ground vehicles. I am going to test it really quickly on one of the master maps, and then I'm going to work on cooking a build so we can go and play it after this podcast Q&A. So what other questions do we have? Let's see. YouTube's nothing. Discord. For the time being, Seal, no. Does your idea have merit? Yes. That would be like a tier 2 or a tier 3 structure. For the time being, no. I already have enough wheels spinning for my artists that I don't want to add more work onto them in this moment. That's something that we can look down later down the line. It's not a bad idea. I'd probably do it as a doctrine upgrade. But I don't want to add anything new to the docket based off of just how much we still have to do for the end of the year. Because ultimately, that's Dimitri that ended up doing that. And he's gonna be torn away from Alcatraz plenty of time to just finish up the vehicles, the ground vehicles, because Derek's going to need his help for implementation. So then you add in that, you know, it's one of those things where it comes down to manpower and resources. It's a good idea, but maybe later down the line we can do something like that. Let me put this Ajax in and then see if it works, and then I'll share my screen and show you guys. Any other questions? Let's see. A question. Is measurement for ops and troops like losing limbs from explosions and affected ripping troops apart? Is it planned? Okay, so right now as it stands, it's only on. We could do it for death, but we don't want to do it for live gameplay yet, because there's no systems in place to basically allow an operator or a trooper that keeps shooting after they lose their limbs. That's something that we can look into doing for polish later down the line, just to kind of make the gameplay a little bit more visceral, where like if you get hit by the type of hit, there's a chance that they'll lose an arm, lose a head. The newer system that we put in for the infected does seamlessly transition to like that kind of stuff, like what you're talking about. It is very possible to do. So I'm not against that. That actually, I like that. That's a good idea. That's something we can try long term. Let's see. Any other questions? Tower limits are going to be left alone for the next couple of weeks. We'll come back to that around Doctrines. Doctrines is going to be kind of a time to do some house cleaning for like systems and things that are missing from Legacy, like formations and some of the other stuff. So we'll kind of roll up a lot of things into the Doctrines area. We're just trying to get that vehicle line item done. Oh. Okay. Did someone raise their hand? I don't think so. Okay, so then if there's not that many other questions, I'm going to wrap it up at this point so I can go work on the next build so we can do a playtest. So I'll give it another minute or two for other questions to come in, and I'm going to conclude it at that point. Yeah, I can hear you. What's up?
I just got here. I was asking, is the work on ground vehicle side?
Yeah, that was an entire first part of the stream. I would recommend that you go back and watch it on YouTube because it covers it pretty much in depth in terms of what we're doing, how they work, and the limitations with them as a drive-by. And I'm working on trying to get a build so you guys can drive around the Ajax, but there is going to be issues with them tonight. Oh, ideally in the next hour or so, hopefully sooner, because I'm playing around with them in a map trying to fix something with them right now.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna let's see anything else. For your answer, Seal, for the time being, no, but that will look into that long term. Once they physically reach their point, they have a build time. It's just the build time is very short. It's 10 seconds. Those structures aren't allowed to do anything for 10 seconds after they're placed. That's why the radiuses don't immediately start spawning, and that's why they're not allowed to build infected from them during that period of time. It's just that there's no clear indicator that a structure is being built. So technically a building does not become operable for about 10 seconds. So it's one of those things where we're going to have to basically kind of tweak that and adjust it because we need to. I don't like the legacy way of doing it where we did this weird fucking scale where basically the pod would grow from like a tiny little centimeter to a large one, because that presented problems in its own for navigation, and it just looked ghetto. It worked. It's surface value, but maybe we just give it a hologram or give it a special color. That's something that for the time being, for the first 5 or 10 seconds after a structure is built, they're inoperable and they can't do anything. And then after that time period, then they're allowed to build units on it, build defense pods, and so on and so forth. We're looking into something ideally next year to basically see if we can get some material effects or something made for them to where it grows or shows some kind of better indication of like what the first 10 second state is. No, you can't build a goth girlfriend in the feature pack. What the fuck? Anyway, so we're going to wrap it up at that point. I'm going to go work on this build because I need to basically get this stuff situated so I can get out a test incubator of the Ajax. And then we'll have a play test in the public channels. You guys are welcome to join and partake. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for supporting our development and kind of just powering through it with us as we try and work to get everything back to what it was, but better for the rebuild. If you want to consider supporting development, check out our Patreon, check out our Discord pledge system, our merch store, support packs on Steam. Everything helps. we all work day jobs. This is our passion project, and we're doing the best we can every day to get it to the point of completion. So that'll conclude it. And if you guys want to play test on YouTube, on Steam Store, on Discord, meet us in the room. I'll be going down there right now, and I'll be chilling in there until we cook a build and get it out for you guys